could ever ask for my kids.
He loved his family. He was always there for everyone.
And a pillar of the community.
He helped a lot of the people who were down on their luck.
He was changing everyone's life.
Is senselessly murdered.
We noticed what looked like burn marks.
Is this a torture type? Was he actually tortured?
Detectives follow a trail of evidence.
I noticed my dad's truck was gone.
We knew that this truck was a key to solving this homicide.
That reveals devastating betrayals.
Marty would employ people from drug rehab centers.
You look at him and you're thinking that if anybody could do it, this guy could do it.
Then a surprise lead reveals a killer no one imagined.
I'll tell you guys everything I know.
No, you haven't. We're pretty excited. We're just about to go nuts. It was I'll say that.
I never thought he would do something like that.
He's not the guy I would have picked to have committed this crime.
I was in complete shock.
Ardmore, Oklahoma is an honest, hardworking town built on family values.
We're a town of about 25,000 people, and it's a wonderful community.
It's a great place to live because you can have that large town feel and then yet come home to a small town atmosphere as well.
On the evening of November 15th, 2019, that small town feeling is shattered when police respond to a 911 call.
I had just sat down to eat when the phone rang, and it was dispatch advising me that officers were out on a possible homicide.
Police are checking in on a local man who hasn't been seen or heard from in several days.
They arrived, immediately looked in the window, could see the victim was laying face down in the floor, and they could see blood, so they forced their way into the residence. They knew immediately that he was deceased.
Minutes later, homicide detectives arrive at the scene.
The living room was just in disarray. There was items kicked over. There was blood on the couch. There was blood spatter on nearby items in the living room, the TV and pictures. And so we knew that there was a struggle that had taken place in that room.
When the detectives look at the body, they recognize the dead man.
I knew the victim. It was Marty Lucas. Most of the police officers knew who Marty was. Marty helped in the community. He helped a lot of the people who were down on their luck. Marty was a nice guy.
Detectives have to determine why 63-year-old Marty Lucas would be the target of such a heinous crime.
With the amount of trauma that Marty had suffered, it was a pretty violent, bloody scene.
You can see a lot of blood that has pooled around the body. You can see blood on the back of the body, on the head, and we knew that this was a death as a result of beating or a blunt force trauma.
It's obvious that there was quite a struggle. Marty had hair in his hands. He had abrasions on his hands. I think he fought for his life. We noticed that there were pieces of what appeared to be a rock that had some moss on them. We found parts of it over by the couch where there was a large blood stain, and then parts of it over by him. We walked the exterior of the residence trying to find where maybe a rock would have come from. Immediately under the carport, there is a rock pathway. The walkway is in a rock. So immediately we thought, well, whoever it was that did this took a rock from there and brought it with him. That indicated to us that this was premeditated.
And so we believe that he or she had used it as a weapon against Marty, and in the process of that, it was broken. We didn't find very large pieces of it, and so we believe that the majority of that rock was taken from the scene.
Police discover unusual markings on the body.
We noticed what looked like burn marks on his shirt, like his shirt had been ironed. My initial reaction was he'd been hit by an iron. He's been burned by an iron.
Is this a torture type crime? Was he actually tortured? And so we believe maybe early on that the iron could have been a murder weapon, or at least an additional murder weapon in this case.
But what could have been the motive for such a violent attack?
Where his wallet would have been, someone had reached in and taken his wallet, because you could see the blood transfer, a handprint, like sliding down into his pants almost.
We were pretty clear that this was a crime involving a robbery, theft. His wallet was missing along with his phones.
Detectives make one more important observation.
We thought whoever had killed Marty knew him because there wasn't a sign of forced entry.
As investigators work, Marty's son Michael arrives at the scene.
I went to his house. It was a nightmare. It's the worst day of my life. I was in shock once I seen what was actually inside.
My husband called me. He said, my dad's dead. Someone killed him. And he was just screaming in my ear. He's like, I can't believe someone would kill my dad. I was in complete shock. He was such a nice person. Who would want to hurt him?
Marty Lucas was born into a military family in 1956. After graduating high school, Marty got married and had 2 children, Jennifer and Michael.
Michael and his dad were very, very close.
He loved his family. He was always there for everyone, you know. He made sure to make time for everyone. I call him Papa Smurf because he's just really funny. He's short. He's just a real, bubbly person. My parents, they divorced when I was pretty young.
Marty had struggles when my husband was a child and a teenager.
He had a substance abuse problem.
He had been in and out of trouble with the police, petty crimes that was a result of that addiction.
In 2007, Marty got a second chance when he was offered a job as a carpenter and found renewed purpose in life.
From then on, he straightened up and started his own business. Did really well.
He turned his life around. He was one of the few success stories that I'm aware of in my career.
Marty threw everything into rebuilding his life and his family.
He taught me a lot of work-related skills at an early age. He let me start working with him when I was 12 years old. And my son, he's 8. He's already started working him, basically, showing him skills like he did me when I was young.
He was the best grandpa I could ever ask for my kids.
Marty never forgot the second chance he'd been given and vowed to pay it forward.
Marty would usually go to the halfway houses and get people that had just got out of jail or have a hard time with their life and see if they would want to work for him.
Basically, just giving workers second chances. He knew where they was coming from. He's been in their shoes.
He taught these men and women new skills, and he treated them with the utmost respect.
Now investigators are left asking, who would want to bludgeon this well-respected contractor and caring grandfather to death?
He really had no enemies, and just to see that the way that he died was so brutal, it was very difficult to know that someone would be capable of doing something like that.
As detectives finish up at the crime scene, they turn to Marty's son, who gives them a crucial lead.
When I showed up, I noticed my dad's truck was gone. That really threw me off because he wouldn't even let me drive his truck. He wouldn't loan the truck out to no one.
It was a Chevy pickup that originally had belonged to Marty's father. That truck was everything to him.
Detectives put out a bolo, or be on the lookout for the missing truck.
We needed to find the truck and maybe hope that either the suspect was still driving it or that they left behind evidence that we could identify him.
We knew that this truck was a key to solving this homicide.
Investigators ask Marty's loved ones who they think would have seen him last.
We found out that Marty had been missing 2 or 3 days prior to the Friday the 15th that we found his body. And one of the things we were told by family and friends is that Marty goes to this Valero gas station every morning to get coffee.
The Valero had video that pointed down the street that the crime occurred on.
The manager said that Marty had arrived last at that store on Tuesday morning.
Detectives search the security footage. On the day after Marty was last seen alive, and 3 days before his body was found, the truck appears.
Marty's truck was very unique, dark green color with custom wheels. This green truck was in a big hurry and it out in front of a semi-truck, and it was almost into an accident that we had captured on video.
Investigators need to track down Marty's truck and whoever is behind the wheel.
We thought if we find the truck, we're probably going to find our suspect. This is going to be our guy.
Coming up, detectives uncover suspects with dark pasts.
They said violent. I thought, good Lord, if he gets violent, I don't know what I'm going to do.
She had frequented a lot of the local casinos.
She knew he had large sums of cash.
This was the break that we needed.
And the trail leads to an unlikely killer.
You're not going to think that this is someone who could kill somebody. That kind of broke open a whole new layer of the case.
The investigation took off at warp speed because we think we've got our guy.
Police investigating the murder of 63-year-old contractor Marty Lucas have obtained gas station surveillance video of someone driving his truck the day after he was last seen.
We collected hours and hours of video in the store. We were able to piece together some events that happened before and after the homicide.
The footage shows a busy street a few blocks from Marty's house. When detectives scour the rest of the security tapes, something grabs their attention.
On Wednesday morning, just after daylight, you could see a gentleman walking from the direction of Motel 6. And that person was walking towards Marty's home.
Is this unidentified man involved in Marty's murder?
You can see the suspect. Then an hour later, you can see on the video that there's one guy in the truck, that there's a single person in the truck.
And so we thought he might be the same person that was in that video. Marty did not allow just anyone to drive this truck. In fact, he did not allow anyone to drive this truck. We had to follow the stolen truck. That was really going to be our key to solving this case.
While officers continue their search for the truck, detectives return to speak to Marty's family and friends.
That's one of the things we were trying to just nail down is who has Marty been hanging out with lately? Who has he been working with? Who has he had problems with, if anyone?
Police learn that along with helping people back up on their feet, Marty often forged friendships with those he employed.
Marty would become close with some of the men that he worked with or that he would hire and try to get to know them.
There's probably about 6 or 7 of them I actually got pretty close to. He built up friendships with them.
Amanda and Jason, Marty's neighbors, were very close to him. Amanda used to work with Marty because she paints very well.
He didn't look down on me for, I was trying to get my life back on track. And he told me he did it, so you can do it.
Marty would bring a lot of these folks to family dinners or get-togethers. He tried to bring them into his family.
But now, police want to know, had Marty's generosity and business exposed him to danger?
He paid all of his people in cash. And that's just the way it is in the day laborers with those guys. They need money that day, so they're going to work. And everything's cash.
To know that he could pay them daily with cash and help them out may have led to his demise.
Police also discover not all Marty's employees felt like part of the family.
It wasn't an easy road for Marty because sometimes he would have to tell them that they couldn't work for him anymore because they would steal from him.
Anytime you're working with people who have drug and alcohol problems, it's not uncommon for them to steal from their employers. And Marty had faced some of that. He wasn't afraid to stand up to these people. He would tell them, if you mess up, you're gone.
So our list of suspects was a mile long. We were given several names, but yeah, it was so difficult for investigators because it was going to be hard to track them down. Where they were staying, they usually don't keep jobs very long.
As detectives begin tracking down Marty's current and former employees, they ask his neighbor if anyone had a grudge against him.
Well, I initially went to interview Amanda, and she said, over the last month or so, there's been some rough-looking characters over there.
1 month before his death, he had been hanging out with these new people, and they were helping him work on his truck and then had to redo the job.
She thought maybe there had been some anger issues between the victim and those guys.
The day they were there working, Marty seemed to be pacing back and forth like they were taking too long, and he didn't want to, leave them at his house. They were making too big of a mess. He was upset about that.
Amanda didn't know the men, but had overheard Marty talk to the man in charge.
One was a guy named Junior, and so this was someone that we wanted to speak with.
There's just one problem.
We did not know who Junior was.
We knew this to be probably a nickname, and that's all we really knew.
While detectives plan to search for Junior, Amanda also provides them with the name of another one of Marty's former employees.
Marty met Chris Dyer at a Valero, the local convenience store that he went to nearly every morning to get a cup of coffee. Chris had recently been fired from that store, had a falling out with the owner, and Marty had employed him.
I know Chris Dyer had worked for Marty and had been fired from there for drug use.
He had a criminal past. He had been arrested and had an addiction problem with drugs and alcohol.
Officers speak with the owner of the Valero station where Chris once worked.
The owner-manager of the Valero store reaffirmed that Chris was just not a very good guy, that he had had trouble employing him, and so he felt like that he needed to let Chris go because there was always drama. That Chris was basically just at rock bottom and desperate for money. Chris Dyer knew that Marty carried several $100s. When he paid him for a job, he would pay him at the end of the day, and he would pay him with cash.
Was Chris Dyer desperate enough to bludgeon Marty Lucas to death?
We were thinking that maybe it was a robbery gone bad, knowing that Marty had this money in his home because he was down on his luck and needed money for drugs. And so there was a lot of questions concerning Chris Dyer. One of our main priorities early on in the investigation is to find this subject named Junior, along with Chris Dyer. And so we wanted to talk to these people.
So we need to locate Junior, and we needed to talk to Chris as quickly as possible.
Police investigating the murder of contractor Marty Lucas are chasing multiple leads as they search for his killer and stolen truck. They've set their sights on 2 of Marty's employees, an unidentified man called Junior and a recently fired laborer named Chris Chris Dyer.
A lot of these folks who are going through tough times, there is nothing permanent in their lives. There is nothing fixed in their lives. There is no stability. And so it was hard to track them down.
Following a lead, police questioned employees at the gas station where Chris had worked.
I spoke with the clerk that was on duty at the Valero, and she was able to give me a phone number to Gina Dyer. Gina is Chris's estranged wife.
She and Chris had been separated about a month because she had caught him cheating. He had gone back to drug use, and that he was currently living at the Econo Lodge Hotel.
Detectives find Chris at the hotel and bring him in for an interview.
We really thought that we had something. We knew that Chris had easy access to Marty's home. Chris Dyer knew that Marty carried up to $500 to $600 in cash on him at any given point in time.
So there's a rumor that some rumors went around that maybe you and him had gotten crossways and he had basically fired you because of a disagreement.
No, not at all. Nope. And I'd like to know who in the hell's saying that, because that's bullshit. Pardon my French.
Police know better than to trust Chris's word.
We knew that Chris Dyer is down on his luck and had run-ins with the law. And well, maybe this is our killer. This is who it is. And then you get him in an interview room and he's cooperative and he's genuine. In fact, he was very distraught over Marty's death.
I hope he catches it. He'll do it and fry their ass.
Yeah, I know, right?
But he was, man, that guy would do anything for anybody. He had some empathy there because he'd been in trouble before too. But, yeah, sure. Tim sure didn't deserve to go out like that.
I think he considered Marty a friend, even though Marty had fired him.
Would you be willing for us to go through your truck, look through your hotel room, see if there's anything that would be...
Yeah, I got nothing.
We can roll you out.
Marty had what we would consider defensive wounds to the hands. There was hair and blood under the fingernails of the body. And so we knew that there was some type of altercation. We knew that there had to be injuries on our suspect or suspects. And Chris had none of that. He had no recent cuts or bruises.
In order to officially rule Chris out as a suspect, detectives check Chris's alibi.
He said he had gone to Kingston, Oklahoma, which is nearby, with Krista, his girlfriend. I believe it was the Wednesday before.
Police bring Krista in for an interview.
Is it possible that he slipped out of the room one night while you were sleeping, left, did something?
No, I can't say that. Just could not be possible.
His girlfriend also corroborated Chris's timeline as to what his story was. He had an alibi for that timeline, but he just didn't appear to be involved.
With nothing to link Chris to the murder, police are forced to let him go. Investigators hope Marty's preliminary autopsy report will provide more leads.
The significant thing for us from the autopsy was the fact the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, including the large gash to his head. Obviously, he was hit with something other than the rock because of the laceration on his head and because of the burn marks.
These burns that was on his back and part of his right arm came back as a post-mortem burns, which was very interesting to us, which means that they were caused after Marty had passed away. Initially, we were looking at these burns to the body as being type of a tortured. Now we believe iron was used as a secondary weapon after. So the suspect didn't realize that. In his rage, he didn't know that Marty had already died, and he continued to hit him with this iron.
The preliminary autopsy report doesn't conclude whether the rock or iron ultimately killed Marty, and an exact time of death remains undetermined. Meanwhile, with the killer still at large, the worry takes a toll on Marty's family.
His son, Michael's always a quiet person, but he was a walking zombie.
I couldn't sleep at night. I'd stay up during the day. Just fear for my family. Just because, I had no clue who would do this to my dad.
Michael was really panicked. Marty had so many different men working with him. I was very fearful of my life.
As police continue their search for other suspects, including the former employee Junior who worked on Marty's truck, a lead comes in about someone close to Marty who might have had a motive.
One of Marty's friends had called one of our patrol officers and told him that Marty was dating a lady named Donna Hargrave.
So, Donna Hargrave is somebody that probably everybody at the Ardmore Police Department is familiar with and knows on site.
We knew Donna had a drug problem as well. She did have a few run-ins with police and frequented a lot of the local casinos.
Could Donna's vices have pushed her to murder Marty?
She knew Marty and knew that he had large sums of cash, and because she is a known drug user, that perhaps she had enlisted the assistance of another known drug user to go rob Marty. That was a scenario obviously had some possibility to it. That's why we needed to talk to Donna as quickly as possible.
Officers bring Donna down to the police department for an interview.
Upon bringing her into the interview room, she was handcuffed, and I knew that she had not come up there willingly.
What's this about? Yes, if I'm not under arrest, then why do y'all have a reason to search me?
She was really uncooperative. She did not want to speak to us.
Okay, what is this about? Please, get this over with and tell me what it's about.
Okay, so...
Somebody who I've been hanging with.
Yeah,
Okay, who?
Marty Lucas.
That would. That's straight up.
She definitely has a problem with Marty that was very suspicious, and it really struck a nerve in us because we wanted to know what this problem is.
2 days after finding the body of 63-year-old Marty Lucas, police are interviewing his former girlfriend, Donna Hargrave, a woman with a long criminal history and a grudge against Marty.
She had been arrested many times here in Ardmore. She had been known to be at least uncooperative with police, if not somewhat violent and unruly.
She didn't really care too much for Marty. We thought maybe she had something to do with his death.
He pissed me off, but he was just being a dickhead.
So when you said f*** him, what are you mad at him about?
He just promised things and y'all never fall through. Like I talked to Marty about moving my trailer over to his house or something. He said no.
He knew that she had not been clean, and that she had not been trying to straighten up, and that he wasn't going to help her as long as she wasn't trying to help herself.
Could Marty's rejection have led Donna to do something unthinkable?
So if I were to tell you something bad happened to Marty, what would you say?
What do you mean? What's wrong with him?
Well, if I were to tell you he was dead, someone did something to him, what would you say about that?
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why you're here.
This was a girl that was very hardened, and for her to break down and to cry and was very genuinely upset over Marty's death.
She did say that they had recently broken up and that she hadn't seen him anytime in the last 4, 5, 7 days.
Can you kind of start like maybe Wednesday morning, tell me where you were, what you did, where you went?
At my mom's and I slept all day.
Okay.
We were able to pretty quickly corroborate where she had been.
It was unlikely that she had anything to do with his death. However, we did not rule her out immediately.
Days after Marty's gruesome death, his family and friends come together to say their goodbyes.
Marty's funeral was amazing. It was very, very sad, though, because everyone who knew him knew that he didn't deserve anything ever bad to happen to him. Everyone loved Marty. Everyone.
There was quite a bit of his workers, even his past workers, that come to his funeral. It was a good day, but a bad day at the same time.
Meanwhile, police doggedly follow each and every lead.
We did have a large suspect pool because we didn't know who all might have been working for Marty. One of the things that we wanted to get identified was who Junior was that was working on the truck. So myself and another investigator said, we'll run by the halfway houses and see if we can get Junior identified. So we went over to the Broadway house, and the director there gave us the name Clarence Bibb Jr. He said he thought Junior was from Oklahoma City, and he's got a pretty extensive record, including some assault. Well, we really believe that if Junior and Marty had gotten into an altercation over the payment of the truck motor, maybe he took the money, it got out of hand, he killed Marty, took Marty's money and the truck, and took it back to Oklahoma City to chop it up.
We found that law enforcement there knew Clarence very well. They knew his family very well, and they lived in several homes that would be described as a compound, like a family compound.
And they said, don't go out there without a lot of us. Clarence is violent, and so you don't go up there by yourself.
Detectives assemble a task force with local and state police and make the 2-hour drive to Junior's compound.
When I first got out there, I thought, man, this is a real possibility. Man, we might find our truck out here. So we went up and knocked on the door. And when Clarence showed up, I thought, good Lord, this is one large man. And if he gets violent, I don't know what I'm going to do. You look at see what had happened to Marty, you're thinking that if anybody could do it, this guy could do it. He's big.
Detectives ask if he and Marty had fallen out over the work Junior had done on Marty's truck.
And he was happy with what Marty had paid him, and there was no disagreement.
He said that Marty paid him $500 more than he was supposed to because of the trouble that we went through.
And in fact, when I told him that Marty had died and that someone had caused his death, he too got emotional. Here, this big, mean, gruff country guy, and he's crying like a child over his friend's death.
He said, I wouldn't harm Marty if somebody paid me to. He said he considered Marty a mentor and a friend.
Clarence denied that he had been in Ardmore recently. He gave an alibi that he had been at home with his mom and other family members around the time of Marty's death, and they corroborated his story that he was there. He fully cooperated with the investigation. He gave us his cell phone.
He let us have clothing and boots. He let us search his house. He let us search the property. And he let us just have free reign of whatever we wanted.
And we came up with nothing. I just remember thinking to myself, man, we are absolutely going nowhere with this investigation.
With nothing to link Junior to the homicide, detectives begin to fear the investigation is cooling down.
We had a pretty good idea that it wasn't Junior at that point. Donna Hargrave had a stone-clad alibi. Chris Dyer just didn't appear to be involved. I think both Bryce and I just were tartaned. We had no leads. We had no suspects, so we were just trying to figure out where do we go from here.
Then, an unexpected call turns the case red hot.
Well, we got back to the station, and dispatch yells down to us, "Hey, they found your truck." We were dead tired, but you went from dead tired to wide awake in a hurry.
4 days into the investigation of Marty Lucas's murder, detectives get the break they were looking for: Marty's missing truck.
And I remember the dispatcher telling me they found the truck. And I said, where is it? And they said in Springdale, Arkansas. And so this was the break that we needed.
We're pretty excited. We're just about to go nuts. We're like, okay, get a hold of Springdale police, get them on the phone, let's find out what we got going on. And it was a moment. I'll say that.
Investigators ask Springdale police how Marty's truck had ended up over 300 miles away.
A citizen had called and told them that his friend had been in possession of the truck. And his friend, he identified as Jack Latham.
But who is Jack Latham? Detectives immediately ask Marty's family if they know the name. They learn Jack was one of Marty's most trusted laborers who hadn't been seen or heard from in months.
Jack Latham, he worked for my dad for a long time. He was a really hard worker.
Marty was extremely good to Jack. He gave him extra money here and there whenever he'd need it. Marty would bring him by my house sometimes, and they would occasionally ride around together. He seemed very quiet.
It was not unusual for people to come and go in Marty's business. Jack Latham worked for him on and off a couple of years prior to this.
When detectives dig into Jack's background, they learn he has a daughter and ex-wife in Ardmore and a checkered past.
He had an extensive criminal history for drugs and theft, but he's not the guy I would have picked to have committed this crime.
Jack Latham did minor misdemeanor type crimes, drug possession type crimes, but this is not a person that would even be on the radar because he had no really violent history.
So, not going to think that this is a guy who could kill somebody, particularly not in the manner in which Marty was killed.
Investigators rush to Arkansas, where police have taken Jack into custody and seized the truck. But before speaking with Jack, they interview the man who first contacted police about the truck, Jack's friend, Raymond.
Raymond, he says to us that out of the blue, Jack calls on Friday night and says that he has got court on Monday. Can he stay for the weekend?
Raymond tells police Jack asked to get picked up at a local parking lot.
So he goes to pick him up, and he sees he's sitting in what looks like a pretty nice Chevy pickup. And he says, hey, whose pickup is that? He said, oh, it's a guy that I'm visiting. He let me come sit in it to wait on you. And he says to us, I didn't believe him. Monday morning, Jack says, just take me to jail. I've got warrants. So he takes him to jail, and then he goes back home and he looks to see what the warrants are for, and it's for theft. And he thinks, I wonder if that truck's stolen, because something doesn't feel right with that truck. So he goes back to where the parking lot where the truck is and sees it doesn't have tags on it.
And so Raymond knew that Jack was lying. He knew he needed to call the police.
We went and looked at the truck, and the truck looked pristine on the inside. But when we sprayed it with Blue Star, there was blood everywhere.
We knew in the back of our minds that this was the key, that Jack Latham was the key to Marty Lucas's death.
And then the investigation took off at warp speed because, yeah, we think we've got our guy.
We went to the Benton County Jail and interviewed Jack that day.
First thing I noticed about him is he's slight of build. He's not very big. He's seems to be very reserved and meek. He doesn't seem to be what I would picture to be a killer.
Then police noticed something else about Jack's appearance.
He looked pretty bad. He had some injuries to his face. He had this greenish brown black eye or injury to his eye. He had a minor abrasion to his lip.
Could Jack have suffered his injuries while attacking his former boss, Marty? Police start by asking Jack when he was in Ardmore last.
Okay. At some point in time, you've been in Ardmore, been around Ardmore, or lived in Ardmore or something? Yeah, a long time ago, about 6 years ago.
Jack tells detectives he's recently been living 200 miles away in Enid, Oklahoma.
Where were you staying at? My brother now.
Then, investigators cut to the chase.
We've been working on an investigation for the last almost a week now. Your name's come up. And before I can really get into a lot of questions with you and details and explain to you, why we're here and all that, I gotta read your Miranda rights.
After we Mirandized him, he said he didn't want to talk to us anymore.
Do you wish to make a statement, or will you answer any questions that we have for you today? No? Okay.
With Jack refusing to talk, police need to find a way to place him near Marty's house at the time of the murder.
So, in his initial interview, he tells us that he hasn't been to Ardmore, that he came down here from his brother's house in Enid. I called Enid PD, and they went out, they talked with the brother, they talked with the brother's wife. They said he has been here at our house.
But then, detectives get a stunning piece of information Jack hadn't shared.
His brother's wife said I put him on the bus to go see his wife and daughter in Ardmore on the Monday morning before Marty had been killed. So we knew he had gotten to Ardmore. The next day we got a hold of the bus and found out that yes, indeed, he had been at Ardmore.
With Jack still in custody, police drive back to Ardmore.
The detectives got a search warrant and looked through Jack's phone, and that led them to his ex-wife and daughter.
Did you see your dad in the truck last week?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you understand what kind of trouble your dad's possibly in? He's been detained as a suspect in a homicide. So you for sure haven't seen your dad since he's been in Ardmore?
Investigators talk to Jack's ex-wife, Teresa, next.
Has he came to visit you lately? No?
But I haven't seen from him or heard from him.
So would it surprise you to know that Jack is involved in a homicide here in Ardmore?
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like him.
Both of them said they haven't seen Jack. He hadn't been at Ardmore. They don't know what we're talking about.
And we knew this was not true because on Jack's phone, we knew that he had called Teresa and Shelby.
And during that interview with Teresa, I laid it out for her. I just flat out told her I knew she was lying.
I'm not saying anything. I've told you guys everything I know.
No, you haven't.
Yes, sir, I have.
No, you haven't. And we can prove it. It's a matter of time before we put you in that truck. We put you in that truck, it starts getting serious in a real quick hurry.
Police start to question if Jack's ex-wife and daughter are involved in Marty's murder.
At that point, she decided that she didn't want to talk to us anymore. She and Shelby left, and I just told her we're not going to stop. We're going to solve this crime with or without you. The only question is, what's your role going to be?
Less than 24 hours later, police get a call.
The next day, early morning, the next morning, Teresa had called, said I want to come back and talk. So from that, that kind of broke open a whole new layer of the case.
Police investigating the murder of Marty Lucas are trying to place his friend and employee, Jack Latham, at the scene of the crime.
We knew that he was coming here to visit his wife and daughter.
They both told investigators that they did not know where Jack was. They had not seen Jack. He had not been in Ardmore.
But Jack's daughter and ex-wife returned to the police station the next day.
Yesterday, you were pretty firm that you didn't know nothing.
I was really scared and I thought about it all night and I felt really bad. Really hit home, so I had to tell the truth. I did see Jack on the 11th and 12th.
Which was what, Monday and Tuesday?
Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
And he dropped us off at my mom's house on the 13th in the morning.
Teresa says Jack stayed at an Ardmore motel on Monday and Tuesday nights.
They said Jack had called Marty to see if he had any work for him. And Marty said, no, I can't use you. I don't need you right now.
And do you know what day that was?
Tuesday night?
They both said that about 8 or 8:30 on that Wednesday morning, Jack left. We sent an officer to Motel 6 to see if they had video. And sure enough, we've got video of Jack Latham leaving Motel 6, wearing the same clothes as the person that's walking. The Bolero camera picks up.
About an hour later, a green Chevrolet truck that we believe was Marty's truck shows up in the parking lot in Motel 6.
You watch him go over to a dumpster, throw something in the dumpster, which we believe was the rock and the iron. Where did he go get the truck?
He said his friend gave it to him.
Then, Jack did something even more suspicious.
When he came in, he went straight to the sink and washed his hands. He did wipe his face down, and he put his hoodie on, and he told me that he did something bad, but he wouldn't tell me what.
He said, we gotta leave, we gotta get out of here. He tips them off, and they don't see him again.
And so by then, yeah, we got enough to file charges on Jack Latham.
I called the family members and told them what we knew.
I was very shocked because Jack had been in my house around my children. He just acted very shy, but he didn't act like he would hurt anyone.
It was shocking to me because he treated Jack with respect like he did everyone else.
Police charged Jack Latham with first-degree murder and extradite him from Arkansas. When he arrives in Ardmore, Jack starts talking.
Jack told me that he was in desperate need of money, that he had no job, and he needed money for drugs, and he knew that Marty Lucas was the source of that money. Marty had told him no, that he knew that he wasn't clean. His story was that a physical altercation occurred, that he took a rock paperweight from the kitchen table, struck Marty with it, that in his words he freaked out, took the keys to the truck, and a few $100s from the wallet, and left the area.
Jack denies attacking Marty with a stone from outside, or the iron.
There were some aspects where he seemed to truly be confused about what had happened because he was strung out on drugs, including, was there an iron used?
So what had really happened? Police have their own theory as to how the murder played out.
We believe that this was premeditated.
I think he went to Marty's house, and I think he picked that rock up on the outside of the house and he knocked on the door. Because I don't think he was going to take no for an answer. And when Marty told him no, a fight ensued in which he struck Marty with the rock. I think Marty fought back. He struck him with the iron, which was readily available, and then burned him with it, whether on purpose or on accident. He took the iron and he took the rock with him, and he disposed of the evidence, and he drove to Arkansas.
It was absolutely senseless over a few $100s.
Despite the evidence, prosecutors worry defense lawyers will try to argue Jack was desperate and never planned to kill Marty.
I thought that this case met the elements from a legal standpoint of first-degree murder, but then you have to be mindful of the fact that a jury would think also Jack's explanation is somewhat believable. He's a hopeless junkie. He's desperate for money.
With the family's consent, prosecutors charged Jack with second-degree murder.
We didn't want to risk going to trial and then letting him free.
In October 2020, Jack Latham pleads guilty and is sentenced to 25 years in prison.
I feel like we got justice. I know he's going to be locked up and my family's going to be safe.
Jack was very unexpected as a killer because he just didn't act like he was that type of person.
Jack Latham, he's still a mystery to me, you know, because just by being around him, I never thought he would do something like that.
He did this for nothing. There was no reason for nothing.
Marty was such a nice guy. But not only that, I mean, think of all the people whose lives he affected in a positive way. That's a sense of loss for our community.
When I lost Marty...
Stop, please, what's your emergency?
I just found a dead body.
Sorry?
Dead body.
Dead body?
Yeah.
So someone slipped in and drowned, or actually, is this a murder scene?
It looks like it's a teenager, really.
Looks like a teenager.
Why was a young man's life taken in such a tragic way?
There's something dark going on underneath that relationship.
It's about status, power, control. It's reckless and it's intentional.
We have a 2-hour time period. We don't know where they've been and what they've done. Is there a killer on the loose? We need the evidence to tell us.
Dog walker going along the banks of the River Hull spotted something which looked to them suspicious.
Can you tell
if it's a male or a female?
Male, I think.
When they took a closer look, they could see that it was the body just on the edge of the riverbank.
He said he was given there was no response. It's obviously a young person, probably aged between 16 and 20. There's no chance he was asleep or anything, there's no breathing or anything like that they could see it.
No.
Police cordon off a stretch of the River Hull. It's not yet clear how the teenager died.
The body isn't fully submerged, the head is slightly, but the majority of the body is just lying on the riverbank.
Suppose to a passerby it may have appeared as if this is somebody who had got into difficulties in the river itself.
No obvious signs of murder, no visible signs of a struggle or stab wounds or anything like that. A whole number of options come to mind, but you must go with what the forensics tell you.
You always have to treat any scene where a body is as a suspicious scene. Is the death natural causes? Is it suicide? Has someone fallen in the river? Have they been drunk and fallen in? Or is it murder? The role of a crime scene manager is to rule out the different hypotheses.
A pathologist is called to the scene.
The first thing to do is identify the body. Often, once you know the identity of a body, the rest of it falls into place.
CSIs search the cordon, but find no personal belongings.
The main way that we can identify someone quite quickly is on fingerprints. If someone's known on police record, you only need a small bit of fingerprint to be able to identify who they are.
The teenager's fingerprints are sent off to be run through the database, while police check missing persons reports and call on nearby homes.
There's quite a large housing estate on one side of the riverbank. Your job, as well as to investigate and bring closure for the loved ones, is also to, if you like, reassure the public.
Just hours after finding the man, the fingerprints hit a match. He's identified as Connor Lyons.
He was 17, but probably looked about 15 or 16. He's extremely a popular young lad.
He was a local boy, a local teenager, really at the cusp of adulthood. He was just about to make those big moves, leaving school, starting work. We knew that there would have been a lot of interest in the area from that community because it wasn't really clear how he was there, why he was there.
He's on the fingerprint register, so he's got a criminal conviction. But the criminal conviction is for low-level social crime, so nothing earth-shattering. He's not a career criminal. He's just a young lad that's probably lost his way a little bit. He'd turned a bit of a corner and was more focused on what he wanted to do, and he was going to go to college and learn to be a plumber. So he had a career in mind, a well-paid career as well. He was kind-hearted, and no one had a bad word to say for him.
Connor lives less than a mile from the crime scene.
The police had the awful job of going round to his parents to confirm that they found his body.
It's very difficult to tell the family that their loved one has died in suspicious circumstances, and you haven't come to any conclusions yet, because they want answers. They want to make sense of it.
Connor's family tell them he went out around 8 p.m. He was riding his bike with his loyal companion Callie by his side.
From speaking to family, Connor had a dog called Callie, and his dog literally was by his side day and night, and he had a lead for him. The time that Connor went missing, the dog also goes missing.
Callie was found alone later that night, hungry and nervous, helping narrow down Connor's final movements. CSIs at the river look for clues as to what has happened.
The victim, Connor, was missing a gold bracelet, bike, and his mobile phone.
There was a gold bracelet that had been bought for him as a present. It did raise a suspicion as to whether or not there had been some form of foul play.
The fact that these are missing then tends to point towards, was this a robbery?
Amid the uncertainty, speculation is rife.
This would have caused a ripple effect within the community. Hearing the news of a young person known well within the community, knowing the family within the community, people start talking and people start coming up with their own theories and their own conclusions to what was going on in that situation.
There'll be all sorts of stuff on the rumour mill. It's a two-way street. The public want to know what's going on, but equally the police want to harvest any information or intelligence there is that might help their inquiry. There was a rumour circulating. He was talking about suicidal tendencies.
There was the seed of potentially Connor got into problems with others potentially involving drugs and that he may have been harmed by those people.
With rumours swirling, the team urgently needs to determine how Connor died.
If this is murder, how can the crime scene tell us the story as to what has happened?
Is it suicide? Is it foul play? Lots of question marks at the moment, and no real answers.
The body of 17-year-old aspiring plumber, Connor Lyons, has been found on the banks of the River Hull.
The reaction in the newsroom was obviously one of sympathy for the people involved, but also you switch into a professional gear. It's a big news story with a lot of interest in the area because he formed part of the community where, sadly, he died. Questions being asked were, how on earth did it happen? Why did it happen? And really, is it a safe place for my children to go?
But after finding no obvious injuries, forensics still need to determine how he died and if anyone else is involved.
Until you've had a post-mortem examination on the body, you don't really know what you're looking for. You have to set your parameters quite large. There's a lot of mud around. I would expect that the suspects would be covered in mud, or at least have mud on their lower clothing, their footwear and their bottoms of their trousers. Soil samples are a really important sample to take from these kind of crime scenes because they may link back to an offender. If you find a pair of shoes or clothing with soil on them, you can match that. Soil can be really distinctive to a particular area. The soil samples will be taken from multiple areas around where the body's been found. You're not looking at a really deep soil sample because if there's any transfer of material, it's going to be the top surface.
They also focus on finding Connor's missing phone, bike, and a gold bracelet he was wearing.
There is a possible motive of robbery.
If someone's been found on a riverbank, there may be items that have been thrown into the river close to where that body is, or items might have fallen off the body.
Police divers enter the water.
Searching a riverbed in the UK is very difficult. It's a long, laborious process. The visibility in the water is virtually zero, and so the police divers would be doing a fingertip search. It's a scientific process to try and determine how wide an area they need to search. Depending on how fast the river's flowing and how strong the current is, that could wash away evidence. It could move evidence.
With rumours flying around about how Connor died, they need to know more about his life.
Straight away, the police have got to do an intelligence search to find out what they know about Connor and who his known associates are. That may well point to foul play. There's clearly evidence that Connor was a very popular, nice young man.
Connor moved to the Bransholme estate in Hull 3 years ago.
The Bransholme estate sits on the outskirts of the city to the east of the River Hull. The estate was built in the 1960s and 70s, and at the time it was described as the biggest council estate in Europe. But despite its size, I would say it still retains a village feel. It had its own shops, had its own pubs, had its own churches, schools, and there is a strong community identity. It tends to be very much a case of everybody really knows everybody else. Connor was a very well-known character on the Bransholme estate. We quickly became aware of his popularity through social media.
Shocked by his death, Connor's devastated friends post tributes to him on social media, and flowers from the community build at the crime scene.
The support Connor's family gave to each other and from the community was a lot of sympathy as well, losing somebody so young.
He turned his life around from having difficulties. He'd had a nasty accident a couple of years beforehand.
Police discover that Connor was badly injured in a serious bike accident.
Somebody's going through a traumatic experience. Their vulnerabilities are going to be heightened. That accident had a significant impact on his body and would have had a significant impact on his mental health. And through that traumatic experience, we've seen a decline and a change in Connor's behaviour. And what we start to see is a trajectory of change, getting involved in things that they shouldn't.
They've shut down all the youth clubs, and there's nothing for kids to do.
Boredom amongst young people is an interesting factor. We're talking about economic climates, and we're talking about lack of opportunity, we're talking about lack of resources, unfortunately sometimes getting them caught up in the law.
Connor's family tell police he's been putting the past behind him, but in recent weeks he hadn't been his usual self.
Connor was distracted. That could indicate he was having some difficulties with friends. It's important to speak to their peer group to find out what they were interested in, who their friends were, because normally, if someone's murdered, they will go to the perpetrator.
To build up a picture of who was in Connor's life, detectives take statements from his associates and study their social media, and quickly have a lead.
There was a social media post in relation to the sale of Connor's missing bike.
Connor had a quite distinctive bicycle that he took everywhere. Everyone knew what it looked like.
Digital experts trace the seller.
Comes back to a guy called Paul Jarvis.
Jarvis lived on the Brownstone estate in the same area as Connor. They were, in fact, living quite close to each other.
He was somebody who had a group of friends, many of whom were significantly younger than he was. Connor was one of them.
Police learn Connor met 21-year-old Jarvis around 6 months ago, after approaching him for help fixing up a dirt bike.
Young people make relationships quite quickly. Both of them like bikes, both of them like motorcycles, and it's those things that may have that initial connection.
They're members of the same peer group, and it would seem that the common interest they had is playing video games, lamping, which is hunting for things like rabbits and stuff like that.
Digital forensic investigators find Jarvis has made several attempts to sell Connor's bike on social media.
On the face of it, it's evidence of suspicion of theft. So let's get him in, hear what he has to say. And it's very important in a murder investigation you get a story from a suspect as quickly as you can, so that you can either corroborate it or otherwise.
Cole Jarvis is arrested on suspicion of theft.
He said, well, I don't know what you're talking about, I haven't got the bike. And says, I don't know Connor that well at all. He's, moved in beside me and we're acquaintances more than friends. It's when the police start delving into the peer group and what they've witnessed and what they've heard from Jarvis, they realise that Jarvis is telling a pack of lies.
With Jarvis in custody, an associate gives a statement. He saw Jarvis after 11 p.m. wearing wet and muddy trainers, riding Connor's distinctive bike.
One of the peer group says that he had squelchy shoes, which indicates he's been near water. His explanation for that was, it's because I'd taken the dog out for a walk. What is damning for him, he was seen riding that bike on the evening.
When confronted, Jarvis's account takes a U-turn.
He then changes his tune, and he tries to change the narrative in another direction.
Now Jarvis tells police he and Connor are in fact friends, and he did have his bike because Connor sold it to him.
Of all the items that were missing, this was in many senses, one of the more important ones, if not the most important, because it was a bike that was important to Connor, and would have been unlikely that he would have been trying to sell it.
What we see with Jarvis, he's continued to go out into the community and try and sell the bike. It suggests that he may be involved.
Why else did he sell the bike? Because he knows Connor won't need it, because he's dead. That's my conjecture.
Detectives ask Jarvis if he went to the riverbank on the night of the 18th of January. He denies ever being there.
Now, it's not an offence to tell a lie to a police officer, but what it is good circumstantial evidence if you can prove that that suspect has lied to you, that his account or his narrative can't be relied upon because all these witnesses say this is actually what happened.
Intelligence officers scrutinizing the rumors spreading across the estate about how Connor died have found further evidence that Jarvis has been lying.
When the police start questioning the peer group, they suddenly starts to dawn on them that the one starting these rumors is actually Jarvis, and why is he doing it?
One involved the suggestion that he had been with Connor much earlier in the evening, when Connor had described wanting to hurt or kill himself. He also, to another friend, raised the possibility of Connor being looked for by people involved with drugs. There wasn't one clear picture.
None of which was true, of course. He's sowing a seed of disinformation, if you like, go along with his narrative.
And in a sense, that implicated his role in this.
We're starting to get a bit more of a picture about a possible suspect. or certainly a person of interest. Doesn't say he's a murderer, but he's got questions to answer.
Needing to know more about Jarvis, detectives interrogate his digital footprint. He claims to have lost his phone, so they request his records from the network. Meanwhile, forensic search teams have recovered Connor's bike inside a relative's shed.
The problem with the bike is that it's free for other people to touch and handle. Jarvis was actually known to the victim. He had legitimate access to the bike, so finding their DNA and fingerprints on there isn't really going to take the case that much further forward.
The team still needs forensics to tell them what happened to Connor on the riverbank.
You have to prove the cause of death, and the only person that can say that person died as a direct result of that action is a pathologist. They're the forensic experts.
The day after Connor was found, the results are in.
The cause of death wasn't straightforward. The initial indication was that Connor had died by drowning, which remained the case. That is how he died. But as the post-mortem was carried out and took place, there were other findings as well. There was damage and bruising around the neck area, which indicated a ligature may have been used. He also had petechiae, so that's the little blood vessels around your eyes and inside your lip, which can rupture on pressure being applied to the neck. Those injuries were not immediately apparent on the surface.
One possible scenario that the pathologist came up with was that Connor had been strangled and then left to drown. So he'd been left in the water knowing that he was going to drown because he'd been rendered unconscious. The second possible scenario was that he'd been strangled and then held forcibly under the water to drown.
Whichever way, the strangulation was an integral part to his death.
Were they callous enough just to leave him there to die? It matters not. In law, there is no difference.
Humberside Police officially have a murder investigation on their hands.
Now this is a murder inquiry, there's a massive shift in the investigation. What was used to strangle Connor? It's really important to try and find the ligature. Being able to find that vital piece of evidence may lead them to the offenders because they might well have their DNA as well as the victim's DNA.
The pathologist suggests that Connor may have been strangled with a rope over his waterproof jacket, which would explain why there are no visible markings on his skin.
A piece of rope had some significance because one of the witnesses had described Jarvis as making a reference to a piece of blue rope in the context of using it to tie people up.
Maybe Jarvis showing people the blue rope is just him showing what he's prepared to do.
This time, when police ask Jarvis about Connor's death, he answers no comment.
It can be tremendously frustrating because they can't really get to the root of the murder. There's lots of circumstantial evidence pointing to him as a person of interest, and he can't be eliminated, but he's implicated. There is insufficient evidence to charge him with murder.
The team needs more time to find a forensic link between him and the crime scene.
There's a sense of urgency now. They haven't got an open-ended clock. What you have to do is prove the lies and prove the truth.
Police in Humberside are running out of time to question 21-year-old Cole Jarvis about the murder of his friend, 17-year-old Connor Lyons. A post-mortem has found that Connor was strangled before drowning in the River Hull, and circumstantial evidence points to Jarvis as his killer. But the team still needs a direct forensic link between him and the crime scene.
There's loads of circumstantial evidence, but there's nothing to put both of them at the murder scene.
There's very little evidence at that crime scene, so you have to then look at further types of evidence, so digital evidence, CCTV evidence.
The clock is ticking all this time. You've got to be resilient. You've got to keep pushing away.
Hull Magistrates Court grants the team a 36-hour custody extension. Using CCTV and phone data, police track Connor and Jarvis's movements. The pathologist determines Connor lay dead for several hours before he was discovered.
Time of death is crucial for forming the parameters of harvesting CCTV. So instead of doing a wide sweep, almost a fishing expedition, you've got time parameters that you can go to. Unfortunately, there's no CCTV of the actual murder scene, but you can look at when was the suspect and the victim last seen. Were they seen together?
After leaving home, Connor meets up with Jarvis and they're seen out on the estate together. At around 8 p.m, CCTV captures two figures walking towards the crime scene.
The closest point to the river from the estate is only a 5-10 minute walk.
You were able to see a dog there which matched by description Connor's dog. It was not possible from the footage itself to necessarily make very clear identifications. A lot of time was spent analysing different pieces of CCTV footage to piece them together. You were able to see parts of the clothing which police were able to match up with some of the clothing that we know either Connor or Jarvis were wearing on the night.
The figure that was identified was wearing a green Parker-style jacket, but they had very distinctive trainers, which have a reflective area that the CCTV picks up.
When you put them all together, you can start to say, well, this must be Connor, this must be Jarvis.
In this case, it indicates Connor would have gone there of his own volition, and we know that Connor and some of his friends were into lamping, which is basically hunting wildlife at night. And it may well be perfectly legitimate for him to go to that area by the riverbank late at night to do some lamping. And I suggest that's how he was lured to that area.
Officers continue to track the man on CCTV. Meanwhile, digital experts analysing phone data have discovered that Jarvis has been telling more lies about his friendship with Connor.
The data indicated that there were quite abusive text messages, that the relationship was deteriorating.
The relationship between Connor and Jarvis was a volatile one, which was capable of erupting into violence at times. The overall picture we had was that Jarvis appeared on the evidence to be the dominant person within that dynamic.
Jarvis is slightly older than the peer group he's mixing with, and I think people can draw the conclusion that he was a bit of a bully, that he tried to coerce younger kids into doing what he wanted them to do. My conjecture would be that he mixed with younger boys because he liked to be in control. He liked to be the boss, if you like.
He's going to have a little bit more knowledge as opposed to those young people that he may engage in. So it's almost like currency. Status, hierarchy and control play a role in friendships. In every group and in every friendship group, there is going to be individuals that want to take lead, that want to be drivers. Jarvis being the leader of the pack in that type of environment, it would have definitely stroked his ego. Where Connor was slightly different is that he was an individual with a strong personality, and we know of loads of incidents where they clashed.
The team needs to find out if one of their fights turned fatal, and why. Shortly after 8 p.m, the figures are captured again on CCTV crossing John Newton Way, heading towards the River Hull, before they disappear from view. At 10:20 p.m, only one figure reappears.
Connor is not in that CCTV. There's a gap of 2 hours, which is consistent with what the pathologist says at the time of death. You can conclude that Connor's either dead or dying by the side of the river.
Detectives are convinced the grainy figure on CCTV is Jarvis fleeing the crime scene. He's seen heading back towards his home, but they still need further proof it's him. With the custody clock running out, a new key witness comes forward with incriminating evidence, just in time.
There was an eyewitness who was driving along Thomas Clarkson Way on his way to work at around 10:20. He's driven past. He's seen this person with a dog.
The area off Thomas Clarkson Way towards the river is pretty much open countryside, woodland, if you like. No CCTV, no street lighting. Large areas that isn't covered by any lighting at all. It's quite a desolate spot. There isn't any reason, good reason perhaps, to be in that area on foot at that time of night.
He was able to give a description of a man wearing broadly similar clothing which was worn by Jarvis that night. and was with a dog that matched the description of Connor's. The eyewitness was able to pick out Jarvis on an identification parade, albeit he could not be sure. It fits the next sighting of the defendant on CCTV heading back towards his home area, only minutes from that sighting. It was one of the most remarkable pieces of evidence in the sense of I had no idea how he remembered seeing this person and the timing. It was quite extraordinary.
Investigators cross-referenced the CCTV and eyewitness testimony with Jarvis's phone data.
At various stages on the CCTV footage, you could see that the person was using the telephone.
When they match the data, he's trying to sell the bicycle on the mobile phone. Now, that's very callous.
Humberside police arrest Jarvis on suspicion of Connor's murder. A warrant is secured to search his home and related addresses.
There's certain things in an investigation that you would want to look for. In this case, you'd be definitely looking for any muddy clothing, any muddy shoes, because potentially you can tie that muddy clothing up to the riverbank where Connor was last seen alive. If an item is really muddy or really wet, the DNA may be inhibited because of the contamination. The bacteria may be from the mud and also from the wet. Say if it's been in water, a river or something. These shoes are quite heavily mud stained. They've got quite a lot of soil on the tops, on the uppers and the lowers of them. The forensic scientists might be able to ascertain where the soil has come from, and if they've got a soil sample from a site, they can compare the two and see if this soil shoe has been at the scene.
The trainers and mud samples collected at the crime scene are sent for comparison to soil expert Dr. Rosie Everett.
My role on the case is to understand whether there is any forensic ecological evidence that can help the police understand whether the suspect has been at the scene. The key pieces of evidence that I examined was a pair of trainers. They were caked in mud right up to the laces. We want to understand what is that mud, where has it come from, and whether there's anything microscopic that we can use to link the scene and the suspect.
Back at HQ, the intelligence team are still trying to understand what triggered Jarvis to kill Connor.
When you looked at the relationship between them and looked at the communications between them, what it did show is a volatile relationship where they were capable of issuing threats to each other, at times fighting like cat and dog.
The team discovers that 3 months ago, tensions boiled over after Jarvis sold a bike belonging to Connor without his permission.
Connor confronts him and says, "Where's my money for my bike?" And Jarvis refuses to give it to him. So at that stage, I would suggest it's when it really starts to turn toxic, because he's basically stealing from Connor for whatever reason.
There were messages in which it appeared Connor was making quite significant threats towards Jarvis. What was also apparent is that when you look at the messages, Jarvis had no fear of Connor, and you had messages from Jarvis to Connor saying, "Carry on testing me, you'll see what would happen."
There were text messages where Jarvis says that Connor is a cheeky, gobby little rat.
I think that maybe his power was challenged. I think that he felt that control he was losing because he's seeing Connor that he's an individual that didn't want to toe the line anymore. But when you have another individual that then stands out from the pack and says, "No, I don't like this. No, I'm not going to follow your instruction," and actually meet you at some point with conflict, it changes the whole dynamic. And when it changes that whole dynamic, then someone like Jarvis now has to demonstrate authority, now has to demonstrate control.
A witness tells police Jarvis showed them a video of him whacking Connor on the leg with a boat paddle, causing Connor to cry while he laughed.
Jarvis was older and he was more well developed. There would also be a physical imbalance.
There is evidence that he's stolen from Connor in the past. There is evidence of Jarvis's propensity to use violence and to be forceful in forcing Connor to do what he wanted him to do. If you put it all together, it's starting to show Jarvis's propensity for violence, and the violence is against Connor, who's younger and weaker. It shows some intent.
With the theft of Connor's bike the possible motive, searchers at Jarvis's home move into the garden.
Clearly you're looking for a murder weapon.
A piece of blue rope was recovered, secreted or hidden in a garden area.
Intelligence has revealed that the offender's been boasting about using a rope to injure somebody. Is this the same rope? You have to kind of put your mind in the mindset of the person doing the attack and think, if I was going to strangle someone with a rope, how would I do it? And therefore that makes it easier for us to then target specific areas on an item for DNA transfer. The ends of the rope might have the offender's DNA on, and then the centre of the rope might have the victim's DNA on. The trouble with this is it's got mud on it, and also it's been wet, so it might inhibit any DNA, so you need to try and avoid the areas of mud, which on something like this is quite difficult. Really get the swab into the nooks and crannies of the rope.
DNA samples from the rope are sent for profiling.
That rope was found to have the DNA of both Connor and Jarvis on, but in locations which would have been consistent with it being held as a ligature and potentially used on Connor.
A rope really is intimate. It's really close, and you would have seen and heard every emotion that would have came with it. So that level of violence really stands out.
That is evidence. Good forensic evidence. If there's a rational or lawful explanation for that, don't you think he should have given it? Quite damning, I would say. And it's becoming quite a compelling case for the prosecution.
Cole Jarvis is charged with Connor's murder.
But it doesn't stop there. The police, up to the day of the trial, are still investigating and still asking questions, because he could come up with a cock and bull story saying, well, I've touched the rope, and so has Connor, because we're friends.
With Jarvis changing his story at every turn, police can't afford to leave a jury in any doubt. They still need to forensically link him to the crime scene.
If we don't get that crucial evidence at that scene, we potentially might lose the case at court. The initial thoughts are there's not much at that crime scene.
But after examining Jarvis's trainers, Dr. Rosie Everett has made a breakthrough.
My particular field is an area called diatoms, microscopic single-celled algae, so nothing you can see with the naked eye, but a piece of evidence that forms in water and soils. The suspect was very clear that they'd never been to that part of the River Hull. Actually, this evidence proves that they have.
It was a light bulb moment in the course of the investigation.
"21-year-old Cole Jarvis has been charged with murder. A rope recovered from his garden has returned a DNA match to 17-year-old Connor Lyons, consistent with the pathologist's findings that he was strangled before drowning in the River Hull. And now, microscopic forensic evidence has tied him to the crime scene.
Part of the reason that diatoms have become such an interest as a forensic evidence type is that if they come in contact with clothing, they get into the fibres and they lodge themselves between your fibres. And it's the same with footwear as well. We can look at them down the microscope to identify them to species level based on their shape, based on their size, and based on the features that they have as part of their structure.
Diatoms are unique to particular habitats.
So there are diatoms that are specific to the sea, there are diatoms that are specific to different river types, and there are different diatoms that grow within soils. So we can use that information to build a picture of where they've come from. The River Hull is a really interesting environment from a diatom perspective. It's a big estuary system. So the fresh water runs into the Humber estuary, which then obviously runs out into the North Sea. And it's a huge tidal system, and it means that you have quite a distinct diatom population from all three of those environments. What we can do, if an item of clothing or footwear has those diatoms on them, then we can try and make a link between, for example, a suspect and a scene.
Samples from Jarvis's trainers are compared to mud and water from the crime scene.
So when you're examining a piece of evidence, we have to be able to demonstrate, if there are diatoms in that evidence, that it's not just a quick contact, that it's across the shoe. In total, there were 6 samples, so 1 from the sole, one from the toe cap, one from the rear of the trainer, and then 3 systematically moving up the laces. Looking at the trainers under the microscope, they were covered in diatoms. This demonstrated that this shoe had been absolutely caked up to the laces in wet mud and had come in contact with all of these different diatom populations. And these diatoms matched exactly to the scene.
It's crucial because it directly points to Jarvis being at the murder scene, i.e. on the riverbank where Connor's body was found. It actually links him, the first bit of evidence actually links him physically to that riverbank.
8 months on from Connor's murder, Cole Jarvis's trial begins.
The atmosphere in any case where somebody has died is always tense and intense, and a whole range of emotions from anger to frustration to anxiety to worry to fear floating around the courtroom.
In a close-knit community like Bransome, it's always very, very sad that a case like this can divide and split friendships.
It does add to the pressure. And it's those emotions that are there we also have to try to shield the jury from, because emotion isn't part of their decision-making.
In court, Jarvis showed a lack of remorse.
He was straight-faced, just stared at the wall, was totally disinterested in the proceedings.
He thought he was going to get away with it.
Jarvis's defense claim he has nothing at all to do with Connor's murder.
This case has got really good, compelling forensic evidence. You've got diatoms that have been found on the shoes and the clothing that was found in the river. You've got Connor's DNA on the rope. And also, you've got CCTV that puts the victim with the offender at a certain time. All those 3 bits of compelling forensic evidence corroborate with each other, so you've got evidence that will link to other evidence to create a really compelling picture.
The only people that know what actually happened on the riverbank is Connor, who's dead, and Jarvis, who's made no comment. Now, if he had an explanation, it would have been in his interest to give it, but he never did.
After hearing the evidence for 3 weeks, it takes under 5 hours for the jury to come to a verdict. Jarvis is found guilty.
When the guilty verdict was announced in court, there were gasps from the public gallery. There was also a lot of tears, and emotions were running high. And it spilled out after the court into words, shouts, screams between the 2 sides on the courtroom steps outside.
Jarvis is sentenced to a minimum term of 21 years.
The judge, in his summing up, alludes to the fact that he believed that Jarvis lured Connor to the riverbank, probably saying, "Let's go lamping," which was popular with them both. He's gone there, and the intention was to rob him of his gold bracelet and his bicycle. But ultimately, we don't know what was in Jarvis's mind because he's never told anybody. He was invited to, but he never did. He never gave evidence in his own defence. If he'd got away with this, I think he would have escalated his offending.
When we think about toxic relationships in any form, people may ask the question, why does a person stay? But oftentimes, there may have been elements where they did have, connection. There may have been elements within their relationship where they had a bit of a laugh.
This is very sad. Connor was loved and respected by all. That's, replicated in the number of people that turned out at his funeral. There were hundreds of people there.
Amid COVID restrictions, 300 vehicles drive in convoy in his honour.
The memory of Connor is one that is beautiful, one that is inspirational, one that shows change.
He had plans for the future, and who knows where it have led. Sadly, we'll never know, because his life was taken from him before he could realise his ambitions.
emergency?
It's my next door neighbor. She says somebody shot her roommate. We need an ambulance.
Okay.
The woman you hear in the background, the 911 call, is Audria Butler. She lives in this house with her two roommates, Lauren DeWise and Ashley Van Hamert.
Audria Butler wasn't home when the crime occurred, but she came home that morning and found her two roommates shot.
She ran over to a neighbor's house, notified the neighbor, and the neighbor called 911 on her behalf.
She said her roommate Ashley is the one that's still alive.
Okay. And she is still alive?
She said she is, yeah.
Okay, all right, I've got paramedics on the way. I've got the police on the way, okay? Just let her know that help is on the way. Roommate is a female, 30 years old. She is alive.
219, Officer Jared Robinson from the Belgrade Police Department was the first officer to arrive.
Copy. Yeah, I just don't know what I got. I'm just pulling up on scene. What's going on?
I stayed with a friend last night, and I just came in and I saw that my back door had been broken. So I went to the back and I could see footsteps in the snow.
Okay, so you don't know if there's somebody else in the house?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Okay. She's unsure if there's still any shooter inside the house, so I'm gonna wait for 206 to get here before we enter.
Copy.
206, 219, you got an ETA?
I'm on Idaho. I'll be there shortly.
Copy.
What do we know? Sergeant Dave Keene, also with Belgrade PD, arrives just moments later.
Ma'am, I need you inside the building, okay?
Hi there. How you doing?
Good.
How are you? How are you? Good. The officers take me back to the scene to talk about that tense morning. Was it a beautiful day like this? Or was
It was
almost
the identical
same?
to this.
Almost exactly the same.
Yes. Very cold, and roads were just like this. Driveway looks almost the same.
Yes, it does.
Kind of eerie. One apparent dead, one still alive. She said I ran out as soon as I saw that. I have no idea if there's still anybody else in there or not. So that's what we got.
That was a very high-risk type of entry that they made into the residence. The body camera can describe it much better than my words could describe it. You can definitely feel the intensity of the situation. He's not sure what he's getting into.
Okay, you ready?
Yep. Belgrade Police!
Police Department!
Anybody inside, come out!
I'm going this way.
Okay, I did stairwell. Police!
Knowing already from dispatch that there's at least one deceased person in the house and another one that was alive asking for help and that they were shot, it's incredibly intense, and you can see that on all the body cam footage.
Where are you at?
Kitchen clear.
When we first made entry into the front door, Sergeant Robinson cleared the main first floor, because again, we had no idea if there was anybody still in the house, and I stayed at the stairwell to make sure that there wasn't anybody there. It's about as dangerous as it gets.
Garage clear.
All right. When they're clearing the first floor, they can hear Ashley upstairs yelling for help.
How many people are inside?
Up the stairs. We're coming.
All right, please, show me your hands. The doors on the left and right.
Okay.
I went past the bedroom that Ashley was in because I had no idea whether or not Lauren was in need of help or beyond help.
There's one female down. Appears to be deceased.
Unfortunately, she had deceased.
Lauren DeWise had just moved into the house less than 2 months before.
Jared!
Yeah?
What do we need?
I start clearing the rest of the house, and Sergeant Robinson enters into Ashley's room to start helping her.
Hello?
Hey! Please don't shoot!
I'm not gonna shoot you.
Please don't shoot!
We need medical in here now.
My name's Ashley!
Ashley and her husky Malamute Bronson have lived with Audria for about 2 years. The body camera footage of her interaction with police that day is raw and graphic.
Are you the police?
I'm the police, right here.
Where are you?
I'm right here. Can you see me?
Ashley was obviously fighting for her life, and you can tell from his video that her vision was obviously impaired by the injury that she sustained.
Ashley's not only unable to see, her injuries also leave her partially paralyzed.
Are you the police?
I'm the police, yes.
Show me your face then.
I'm right here. Can you see me?
No.
The video is chilling. She's asking you, are you really a police officer?
Yeah.
Don't hurt me. Don't shoot me.
Right. I just felt for her, you know? I being in that position to where you're helpless, you know? So I felt for her. Just tried to reassure that we were going to get her the help we could. We got the medical people coming in. I'm trying to figure out what happened to you. Where are you bleeding from?
I'm not bleeding.
Okay, well, how do you have blood all over you?
Do I?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know why I do.
If I can have somebody maintain the crime scene at the front door to let nobody in.
We don't have time to make sure that the house is completely secure. However, she needs help, and she needs help now. It was apparent that she'd been in there a long time, and I don't know how much longer she has. So at that point, I made the decision to remove her, which I understand it's against their policies and protocols.
Ashley, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick you up and we're gonna carry you down to the paramedics, okay?
Oh God, what are you doing?
I think I'm gonna have to get up here. We're gonna have to carry you, ma'am.
What are you doing, sir?
We're gonna pick you up, we're gonna carry you.
Where are you carrying me?
We're coming down.
Where are you carrying me to?
Upstairs.
Watch your step. This is as far as I can get the door.
Where's the cot?
It's straight out, back. Keep going.
We have no idea. She just keeps looking this way. I don't see any obvious.
I'm not gonna go.
You don't have a choice. We gotta get you up to the hospital.
I'm not going.
One of us to go with.
That's fine.
You want me to ride with?
That's fine.
Then one of you does something you don't normally do. You ride in the ambulance with her.
Correct.
Surgery. All right. Ashley. Well, at that point, we still didn't know where the assailant was. So, again, we want to ensure her safety.
Okay, let's go.
I don't want to go to the hospital.
Oh, I think we need to go to the hospital.
I'm refusing.
You can't refuse.
How old are you, Ashley?
32.
32. Can you tell me what happened and when?
I don't know what happened.
She is transported to Bozeman Deaconess Hospital.
We're going to take care of you, okay? Alright. Time is 9:41. Off recording as they're working on her in the ER.
Meanwhile, Sergeant Keene is setting up a crime scene as investigators search for clues.
Tracks out the back. The door from the back's been broken open.
There was a trail of footprints that led from the front of the residence through a gate all the way to the back door.
And Ashley, she's fighting for her life.
She had been shot point blank in the back of the head, but we weren't even sure if she would survive.
Belgrade is one of the fastest growing towns in the state of Montana.
Belgrade's a very tight-knit, blue-collar, working-class community.
Generally, kind of a bedroom community. Our citizens, they live here and work in Bozeman. We're completely surrounded by mountains, and we have wilderness areas nearby.
We get several million visitors, predominantly Yellowstone, and then for our skiing, which is some of the best. We have all of the blessings that we could ask for in the mountains.
Murder is extremely rare in this town in Montana, but on that first Sunday morning of 2018, a call comes over the local police radio. Possible double homicide. Law enforcement and medical personnel rush to this house on Idaho Street, preparing for the worst.
Thank you for your help.
We cleared everything out.
So we're just gonna get back everybody out till the detectives get here.
With the crime scene secure, detectives are able to begin their investigation into what happened to Lauren and Ashley.
From that first initial appearance, it didn't appear that it was a burglary. There were no open drawers. The place wasn't ransacked. There wasn't stuff strewn about. We got tracks out the back. The door from the back's been broken open.
There was a sign of a break-in?
Yeah, the screen door on the back had been kicked in.
It was very clear that obviously they had gotten in through the backyard.
There's a gate, but it's not open, but it's unlatched.
They went through a gate, went around the back, and gained entry through a sliding glass door in the back.
You could see that there were tracks leading around the side of the house.
Ms. Butler had indicated early on that those were not made by either her or any of the ladies in the household. So those were of significant interest to law enforcement.
There's tracks going around that way.
Yep. We'll document all that.
Chief Dustin Lensing trudged with me through the snow to demonstrate the low-tech tactic police used to gather highly valuable evidence. You had vital evidence right there in the snow, but you're racing against the clock.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes in Montana, weather conditions can change rather rapidly. In this case, we knew the snow was going to be melting, so we documented everything initially with photography.
I see some red paint in some of the crime scene photos. Is that some sort of high-tech forensic tool?
I wouldn't call it high-tech by any means, but we will spray paint these prints.
Can you show me how you did it?
Yeah, absolutely. If we could use this one, maybe?
Okay.
That detail's not going to stand out in your average everyday photograph with the white and the way the light reflects. But you give it a little dusting, and you can see where it really makes that detail stand out.
That's amazing. You can tell the ridges and the design of the bottom of the shoe.
Yeah, it kind of just produces almost like this little 3D model, right?
There were two distinct patterns of boot prints, and they started doing the analysis to try to figure out what types of shoes they were actually made from.
Inside the house, investigators are examining the bedrooms where the two women were shot.
My first inspection of the crime scene, I remember Lauren there, and she was clutching her cell phone. That's kind of a powerful image right there because you know she's scared and trying to call for help.
Law enforcement ultimately determined that Lauren had been shot multiple times and that she had gunshot wounds to both the head and chest, and that resulted in her death.
Both Ashley and Lauren had been shot in the head. For Lauren, it was fatal, and Ashley miraculously survived.
So we later learned she'd been moving around in the room, and so as a result of that, there was blood everywhere.
Detectives find no fingerprint or DNA evidence, but they do find shell casings, 9 of them in all.
There were 4 shell casings in Lauren's bedroom and 5 shell casings in Ashley's bedroom.
So there were 22. There were 2 distinct brands of ammunition used, the Winchester X-22 and the Aguila brand 22 caliber. So we had mixed ammunition in there. So are we looking at 2 weapons? Or are we looking at somebody who loaded their gun with mixed ammunition?
While investigators piece together clues at the scene, Audria Butler is interviewed at police headquarters.
I'm going to tell you right now, this is not my best moment, so...
No, don't worry about
I'm
it.
doing my best right now.
We'll get through it. It's a very tough time right now, I understand that.
Audie Butler owns the house, and to help cover some of the bills, got a roommate. That first roommate was Ashley Van Hemert.
She also recently started this friendship with Lauren DeWise, and Lauren was having some marital problems with her husband.
Paul DeWise was Lauren's estranged husband at the time, and Paul and Lauren met when they were both teachers down in Florida. Paul was married to his wife Maria at the time that he and Lauren had first met, and when that marriage kind of started falling apart, then that's when he and Lauren got together.
When he was married to Maria, he had 2 children, Natalie and Joe.
So Lauren really cared about Joe and Natalie, as if they were her own kids.
The couple has their own child, Jennifer, and shortly after she's born, the DeWises sell everything. They get an RV, and they set off to see the country.
They ultimately relocated to Bozeman, Montana, where Lauren was able to find employment with the local bank, and Paul did some construction-type work and things of that nature.
Jessica Johns befriended Lauren when she settled in Bozeman. In photos posted on Facebook, Lauren appears to be loving her new life.
This is actually a beautiful picture of Natalie and her brother Joe, and then Jennifer, the little girl. They just always seemed happy.
I got the straight part in the basket part.
I just remember her being so bubbly and so full of life. She was just somebody that was just always so positive no matter what.
Lauren kept up appearances, even though her marriage to Paul was falling apart. But then Lauren turned to Audria for help.
She said, I can't believe I've never told anybody this, but I think I need to leave Paul. I said, we've always got, you have people. You're not alone here. You can come stay with me anytime you need to. Yeah.
So Lauren moved in with Audie in November.
He made it really hard, and it was just like, when are you moving home? Why are you moving home? And she's like, I'm not moving home.
At this point, you know you have to talk to Paul DeWise.
Correct. So you try to coordinate that as best you can. You call in as many people as you can.
In a matter of minutes, police track down Lauren's husband, Paul DeWise.
They pull the car over as a homicide suspect, so they are doing a high-risk traffic stop.
Let me see your hands. Keep your hands up. Everybody needs to keep their hands up.
Ashley Van Hamert is in critical condition, fighting for her life in a hospital in Colorado.
She had been flown out of state. We didn't have the capacity to care for her. She had been shot point blank in the back of the head. You know, for a bit there, it was touch and go. We weren't even sure if she would survive.
All I did was go back and forth in the bedroom, clenching my hands and just praying to God that she was okay.
Ashley's mother says Ashley and her dog Bronson found their paradise on Earth in Bozeman.
She loved it here. I mean, close to the mountains, take Bronson out running, snowboarding. She was happy. It was what she had dreamed of.
While doctors in Colorado do all they can for Ashley, law enforcement in Montana is interested in talking to Lauren's estranged husband, Paul DeWyes. Less than 90 minutes into the investigation, Bozeman PD tracks down Paul DeWyes as he and his 3 children are returning home from church.
Let me see your hands. Both of them. Pull your window down. Slowly. We're going to give you some commands, okay? Turn the car off.
I copy you on the channel.
They pull the car over as a homicide suspect. We don't know if he still has the weapon. We don't know any of that background. So it was treated as a high-risk stop.
Hands up. Hands up. Walk over here. Turn around. Look away from me. Walk backwards. Keep coming. Keep coming. Stop. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Do not move. Do you understand me?
It was intense, but Paul did cooperate with them, and the kids went into the care of Child Protective Services until they could find out what happened.
Take him to the back of my car.
And then he was brought in for questioning.
Paul DeWyes is taken to an interrogation room like this one here at the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office. He will spend his entire Sunday answering questions about the shooting of his wife and Ashley Van Hamert.
It was one of the unfortunate things in this investigation is because they found Paul so quickly, we didn't have any kind of real profile on him. So we kind of went into it with the game plan of we were going to make adjustments on the fly.
So, the reason that I wanted to talk to you is there were some issues that happened over at Lauren's house this morning.
Sure, right?
Well, not really. She isn't. Well, the person that came in ended up shooting her. So
she's dead.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I told him she is dead. And he was all over in his chair, rubbing his hands on his legs.
So that's why we're talking to you, because you guys are going through a divorce. And...
Well, walk me through what you did yesterday. Maybe breakfast?
He goes through from the moment he wakes up and has a very, very detailed explanation of what he did the entire day.
During the day, Mr. DeWyes had been texting Lauren. He wanted her to come back over and visit with the children.
So I'm trying to get her to come over as much as I can. She's just giving me a hard time. She didn't come over.
So law enforcement was able to determine that Lauren's last text message was sent just before 11 o'clock p.m. that evening, where she had indicated to Mr. DeWyes that she did not wish to attend church with him and the children that following day.
So what about last evening, last night?
He basically painted a picture of staying at home and watching TV and just spending time with his family during the entire night leading up to and during the night of the incident.
Exciting. I mean, I was just in my chair all day.
One of the only times that he expressed leaving that night was to go get beer.
I went and got a 6-pack of beer around midnight at Town Pump. Which Town Pump? On Main Street.
It was one of the things that we were fairly quickly able to identify was which gas station he went to. The detective went and pulled that video very quickly, and we did find Paul on video going to that Town Pump and buying beer.
It did match up in terms of the timeline that he gave when he would have gone to the store.
And you made no other trips except to go to town pump? Am I getting that right? So I'm going to ask you right now, I'm going to look you right in the face, I'm going to ask you, were you involved in this crime? No. Did you hurt Lauren? No. Did you hurt Lauren at all? No.
He adamantly denied being at Lauren's house that night.
I'm going to be completely honest with you right now. I'm not completely comfortable with where we're at in this interview. I don't think you're in a good spot.
Of course, yeah, I understand. I know I'm the prime suspect.
Authorities are talking to Paul's teenaged children, Joe and Natalie, and what they say surprises even veteran detectives.
Was your dad home with you guys the whole time on Saturday?
When Paul DeWise is pulled over and arrested, his 3 children, Joe, Natalie, and Jennifer, are in the car.
Okay, we've got a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 4-year-old. You doing okay? Okay. You want to sit in the car and stay warm?
While Paul is being questioned at the sheriff's office, his children talk to Child Protective Services.
So, Miss Jennifer, my name is Erin, and I talk to kids and people every day. I first spoke with Jennifer, who had just turned 4, and she had a very brief interview. I then spoke with Joseph. We asked about what had happened Saturday night.
Saturday, we were supposed to we went to church today.
Okay.
And we stayed up way late. We shouldn't have stayed up that late because we have to get up early to go to church.
Last night you stayed up way late?
We were just hanging out watching movies.
He indicated that they had stayed home and just kind of hung out. Was your dad home with you guys the whole time on Saturday?
We did go to the town pump, me and him, for him to get beer.
Oh, okay.
And then we came back home.
Oh, okay. What time do you think that was about?
Probably around 12.
Both Natalie and Joe were pretty consistent that they had been home that evening.
We were watching movies, we were watching a nature show, and we watched The Office, and we stayed up late. And my dad and my brother went out and got beer around like midnight and came home.
They were all at home watching TV together all that night, and then pretty much just mirrored what DeWise had said.
Nothing stood out about any of their statements, about the events of the night. We look at everything. But there was no aha moment there.
When we were done with the forensic interviews, it was decided that we would let the kids know that Lauren was deceased. We had told Joe and Natalie and let Jennifer know that something bad had happened to Mommy and that Mommy was now in heaven.
With Joe and Natalie's account of the night matching up with their father's, Paul DeWise is free to go, but not to go home.
They're not done searching your house, okay? And they're apparently going to do a forensic search instead of just the consent search that we talked about on the vehicle. Okay. So you're not under arrest. Nothing's changed in that regard. But unfortunately, the car and the house are still tied up. And probably will be for quite some time.
At the end of the interview, we didn't have enough evidence to hold him, so we released him.
Because he was still considered a suspect at that time, CPS made the decision not to let the kids go back to his custody, so the kids went to a friend of the family's and stayed there.
Detectives keep an eye on Paul. At the same time, they have to widen their net.
You've got 3 people that live in the home where the incident occurred. Who was the intended victim? Or were they all the intended victim? Or was it just a random act? So now you start digging into the personal lives of the people involved and have to weed out each one of those potential avenues as a potential suspect.
Through the interview with Paul, he brings up a couple situations where he found Lauren cheating on him, despite the fact that they were separated. First one was at Old Chicago.
Investigators are interested in talking to a man named Kevin Frolstead. That's because of an incident that happened here in the parking lot of this restaurant, where Paul says he caught Lauren kissing this other man.
I opened the door and I was like, "What are you doing?" And I was talking to the guy, I was like, "This is my wife." And the guy came around and started attacking me. So I fought off. Did you recognize him or no? No, but I found out he lives in Billings. Yeah, it's Kevin Frolstead. Frolstead? Something like that.
Hey, Kevin, this is Detective Oxmeyer with the Sheriff's Office. Hey,
Brian, you got a little bit to talk?
I do.
Kevin was a coworker of Lauren's.
Mr. Vralstead and Lauren had become friendly with each other. They were at Old Chicago one night, and there's some drinking involved.
I mean, I had walked her out to her car, and her husband jumped me. The police came, and I told them what happened, and they asked if I wanted to press charges, and I said no. And that was really the end of it, as far as I knew.
I think Mr. Vralstead's a little concerned because he is in a romantic relationship with another lady at the time.
You know, I gotta ask you, and I want you to be 100% honest with me. Did you and Lauren ever do anything physically together?
No, we did not.
Did you guys ever kiss?
No.
I don't know that he's entirely straightforward with law enforcement about the nature of his relationship with Lauren, but it's ultimately determined that this was a one-time situation where they met in the parking lot and had a kiss, and that was the end of that encounter.
Investigators determined that Kevin had nothing to do with the shooting.
Kevin actually had a fiance over in Billings at the time and was furniture shopping with her the morning after the homicide was found.
In his police interview, Paul also claimed Lauren had a relationship with a man named Brian Ruddick.
So we had to see if maybe there was some sort of love triangle gone wrong or anything like that that could have led to Lauren's death.
I am calling about Lauren. It is my understanding that you guys were involved in some sort of a relationship. Is that correct?
Yeah, we started talking and had a lot in common and hit it off. We were just got along really well. We were really good friends.
Brian admits that he and Lauren enjoyed each other's company, but he says their relationship was primarily an emotional one and not physical. Additionally, he had an alibi for the time of the murder.
Yeah, he was ice fishing with a buddy over on Ennis Lake, and I called the friend and confirmed that he was there.
Brian is cleared of any involvement in the shooting, but investigators are not just focused on Lauren's relationships. They look into her wounded roommate Ashley's on and off boyfriend.
I mean, here you have the boyfriend, who's the last person to see Ashley before she goes into the house.
So when was the last time you actually had contact with her?
Detectives are also interested in speaking with victim Ashley Van Hamert.
Do you remember anything at all?
The hours and days following the shooting are critical for Ashley and her survival.
Tell me about the first time you saw Ashley in the hospital.
It was a sight I wish I could get out of my head. Just tubes running everywhere. And the hardest thing, she was just motionless. An active girl that's usually like can't get a stop her from moving. She was just laying there.
But Ashley continues to fight. Through her tireless efforts and with her supportive family by her side, Ashley begins to recover.
Okay, Bronson, come back. Bronson, come here, boy.
And today, she's back in Bozeman with her beloved Bronson.
I love you. I love you. Yes, yes.
Now she sits with 2020 to tell her story.
So glad to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, yes.
How would you describe what you've been through?
Hell and back. But God is good, and I'm still here. The Lord literally saved my life that night.
Somehow, the way that the bullet stayed prevented her from bleeding out. Really just a miracle that the bullet lodged the way that it did.
The doctors told my family if that bullet would have moved absolutely anywhere in the 9 to 10 hours I was on the ground, I would have bled to death.
It literally stopped the bleeding.
It literally plugged the hole perfectly in my carotid artery. And so that's why I did not die that night.
A miracle?
Yes, no doubt. No doubt a miracle. Yes.
Ashley was shot 4 times and endured multiple surgeries, including removing part of her skull after she suffered a massive hemispheric stroke. The first thing she remembers is the moment she woke up.
The first thing I actually remember is opening my eyes, and I saw some of my family members in the room, and I gave the I love you sign to them. And that's when they knew I could see. Because until then, they didn't even know if I would be able to see or not.
Can you show me that again?
To my family, yeah.
So you survived this terrible crime.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, there's a major homicide investigation going on here in Montana.
Detectives visit you. They're trying to get you to help them solve this crime.
Yeah, they visited me in Colorado.
Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
My name's Dustin.
Hi, Dustin.
We're going to have some questions, but mostly we just want to hear what you have to say.
Ashley tells Lensing that prior to the shooting on the evening of January 6th, she had gone out to a movie with her boyfriend, Ralph Dennis.
We went and just had a good time, and yeah, I remember driving home, and he didn't get out of the car, just gave me a kiss goodnight, and the last thing I remember is closing the door to my house and locking the door.
Can you tell me, do you remember anything at all?
When I got shot? No, I do not remember being shot at all.
Investigators want to talk with the last person Ashley remembers seeing the night of the shooting, Ralph Dennis.
He's a pretty big guy, and he definitely would have the means to overpower these two women if that's what had happened.
Okay. I'm gonna record our conversation. Do you prefer the door open or closed?
Doesn't matter to me. Open's fine.
Ralph Dennis is questioned by police the day after the shooting. He says he dropped Ashley off at 9:30, and he says their relationship was coming to an end.
And how do you characterize your relationship with her right now?
We've been attempting to break up with each other for several weeks.
Ralph was very cooperative. He didn't appear to be nervous, didn't appear to be anxious.
You guys didn't have a fight or anything like that?
Not at all.
Nothing like that. So when was the last time you actually had contact with her?
When I dropped her off.
There's two parts with Ralph. There's one, there's this relationship that was broken up recently that we knew of. And then as we were trying to process the crime scene, there were prints in the blood that led us to believe possibly there was a dog there. So that became a possible clue.
So Bronson's the dog?
Bronson is her dog. Since we started dating, I kind of took Bronson in under my wing because she works a lot and Bronson just gets bored at the house. So Bronson stays at my place all the time now.
The theory there was if the dog was in the house while Ashley was bleeding and left a paw print, and now the dog is at Ralph's house, how did that happen, right? That wouldn't have happened unless he'd have been there.
What I'm curious about is just like, is it possible? Was the dog there? Did you come over? Did the dog leave? I mean, I'm just trying to make sense of that.
No, absolutely. I can tell you. So, without a shadow of a doubt, Bronson has been in my care since Thursday morning.
We brought the dog in. We swabbed between its toes, trying to find any evidence of the blood from what the crime scene processing team thought was a bloody footprint.
That was definitely the first time we'd ever photographed and captured the prints of a dog as part of a homicide investigation for sure. There was no blood that was either seen or otherwise swabbed from the dog prints or anything like that.
Turns out that was just a blood pattern on the dog bed that remarkably resembled a paw print, which turned out not to be.
Turns out the dog was never there, but we had to rule that out as a possibility.
Bronson's paws proved to police that he didn't leave a footprint at the crime scene, and the same can be said for Ralph Dennis's feet.
I think he had like size 13s or something. Pretty big, and definitely not what we had seen at the scene of the crime.
He was very forthcoming. He provided his cell phone data. He had, in fact, dropped her off at the house and then returned home that night. And so we're able to eliminate him.
Early on, your friend Ralph becomes a possible suspect. Did you ever think maybe he was involved?
No, never. Never, never, never. Not in a million years.
With their list of potential leads drying up, it's back to the drawing board. Soon, detectives discover a curious text exchange between Lauren's stepchildren, Joe and Natalie DeWise, on the night of the murder.
All of a sudden, just before 3 a.m., there's this text between Joe and Natalie of I love you too.
Who texts their sibling at 2 o'clock in the morning, I love you? Like, that's really bizarre.
Both Dustin and I feel like something's there. That doesn't make sense.
We decided that we were going to do some good old-fashioned detective interviews with them, despite their age.
Natalie, how old are you again?
17.
Okay. You do have the right to remain silent. You do not have to answer any questions. Okay, keeping all that in mind, do you still want to kind of ask or answer a couple of questions for me? No?
I mean, now that I have a choice, though.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Natalie had invoked her rights, so she actually wasn't interviewed. And then Joe was being interviewed.
It's important that we're completely truthful with each other.
We were really beginning to suspect at this point in time that they knew something.
Help me. Help you.
I'm not gonna shoot you.
Both Ashley and Lauren had been shot in the head. For Lauren, it was fatal.
Joe, you've gotta help me. I don't know.
What do you see when you see that still picture?
A young man who had been carrying kind of the weight of the world on his shoulders. Oh boy. This big deal. The amount of man hours that went into searching, trying to find the murder weapon.
And I'm angry. And my children are angry. And my baby's angry. And it's hard for me to live with.
The biggest freight train that you could see coming, I saw it coming and I couldn't stop it.
That's when he started to shoot me.
Horrific. How do you make sense of that?
Satan,
It still stays with you.
he'll never leave.
Montana, from the Spanish word montaña. It means mountainous, and Bozeman, Montana is surrounded by the Rockies. They warn you about grizzlies and wolves out here. But in the Gallatin Valley, in the shadow of the mountains, another predator, the killer who shot Lauren DeWise and left Ashley Van Hamert for dead. Authorities may have released Lauren's husband, Paul, but if he thinks he talked his way out of trouble, he's terribly mistaken. The former schoolteacher has graduated from person of interest to prime suspect, with 2 driven detectives on his trail.
It wasn't work. It was something other than that. It was
a mission.
They didn't say don't leave town, but the detectives are worried he might.
We were starting to get worried. More and more information was leading us to Paul, and is Paul going to disappear? Are we going to lose him to the wind?
Hello. Hey, Paul. How are you?
A detective tries to persuade Paul to come back for another interview, but the suspect is suspicious.
Have you come up with any suspects besides me at this point, or am I still it? Well, we can talk about that when you come down.
When police search here at Paul DeWise's home, they find some of those unusual Aguila brand 22 caliber bullets.
We did find matching or like ammo in his possession at his home that matched the shell casings at the scene.
Very specifically, they found the Aguila ammunition. That's not something that's common. That's not something you can buy around here.
Police are poised to make an arrest when Detective Lensing gets a call. It's Paul.
I was wondering when I could get access to my house again.
As I'm talking to him, we are literally following him in the car. He doesn't have any idea.
Can you give me a call when I can go back?
Yeah, absolutely.
He is arrested shortly after making that phone call.
He was arrested on 1 count of attempted deliberate homicide and 1 count of deliberate homicide.
Paul pleads not guilty. Detectives are puzzling over boot prints at the crime scene and where those prints might lead.
There were definitely 2 distinct sets of footprints, tracks in the snow that were going into the residence.
Do you have a standard pair of shoes that you use when you go out?
Well, I wear these sometimes. I've got a pair of boots I wear sometimes.
Detectives determine 1 set of prints at the crime scene was made by Merrill hiking boots like these, size 11.
And what size shoes do you wear?
11.
They say they find Paul wearing those Merrill boots in family photos on Facebook and in the convenience store video the night of the murder.
And we never found them because they were thrown away or destroyed.
The footprints in the snow at the crime scene, the trail of a killer, lead police here to the shoe aisle at the local Walmart.
One of our detectives decided that he was just going to go to Walmart and just start pulling shoes off the shelves and looking at each and every boot that he could find.
The question is, do you have a match?
We had a match.
Sure enough, the detective says he finds an Interceptor Frontier tactical boot with a tread pattern consistent with prints found at the crime scene. The mystery now, who was in those shoes? Detectives turn to Paul's children.
We were really beginning to suspect at this point in time that they knew something. We decided that we were going to do some good old-fashioned detective interviews with them. You know, one-on-one, sit them down like anybody else, despite their age.
You know Lauren as well as anybody. What do you think happened to her? What's your speculation? What do you think happened?
She was in her home sleeping, and something unfortunate happened.
Who do you think could do something like that?
I have no idea. And it couldn't be my dad. He loves his family too much.
And then there's a commotion outside the interrogation room. Police thought those boots were one size, but a crime scene tech, Mike Gersey, suddenly realizes that's wrong. The boots are much smaller.
I'm watching your interview with Joe Jr. And Gersey runs up to me and he's like, these aren't size 10s or whatever. These are much smaller.
Guys, I was off on the size. This isn't a size 10. This is a size 6 or 6.5.
And I'm like, oh crap.
And I get a message, pause, come out. Take care of you right back, okay? That kind of changed everything. Because now I'm thinking we got a size 6 probably in this interview room.
Detective Cobb returns with a pair of interceptor boots. And Joe can't seem to take his eyes off of them.
So, have you ever seen boots like that before? So you have a pair of those?
I did.
Okay.
They got messed up from me working, so they weren't doing their job anymore, so I threw them away.
And we had found pictures later on cell phones that showed Joe in those boots.
What size of boot do you wear?
6 regular.
Okay.
We are thinking that Joe DeWise was there. His shoe prints are at the scene of the crime.
We decided to stop the interview because the interview was going to take a turn.
Because now Joe is implicated somehow.
And I don't believe that you're being completely truthful with me.
We didn't actually know what happened in that house. Without eyes on the inside, or someone admitting to what happened, we couldn't put all the pieces together. Until Joe finally started putting those pieces together for us.
Hey, Mom.
Joe DeWise, an alibi witness for his dad, is back in an interrogation room for the second day in a row.
The dynamic has not changed. His mom is there. And you've had a heart-to-heart with her before this.
We did.
When Joe's mom, Maria Frazier, arrived in Montana, Detective Jeremy Cobb greeted her with stunning news. Boot prints at the crime scene suggest Joe was there.
That was a hard conversation.
When you want to tell them.
What do you see when you see that still picture?
Heartbroken mom and a young man who had been carrying kind of the weight of the world on his shoulders. If I can't get you to be honest with me, I can't help you.
Jeremy was very delicate with Joe.
And I don't believe that you're being completely truthful with me.
We were pretty sure at that point that Joe was there at the scene.
Joe, we've got to be honest with each other.
Completely honest with you.
How did your boots, those same prints, end up at the crime scene? Joe, be truthful. I have a son that's similar age as Joe, and I could see, so much of my son in him. It made it more personal. Joe, you've got to help me. Just tell me it wasn't you that went in and shot her. Did you go in and shoot her?
I did not.
Then who did?
When does the dam finally break?
Several denials, deviations, but you can see every time it gets a little heavier, a little harder.
How long have you been playing it?
And this is it.
I don't know that he was planning it.
You don't think he was planning it? I think he just did it out of the blue? Why that night?
I don't know why that night. It's just how
it happened.
He's tortured by the loyalty to his father.
There's the weight of Joe and everything that he's carrying. And then he started to slowly share that Paul had brought him with him.
Joe says his father, armed with a pistol, forced him to go with him to the house. He says he was afraid his father would kill him and his sisters.
Stay here. You understand? You stay here. It's okay.
Could you see the stairs? Could you see the stairs? Yeah. Could you hear him? Yes. Could you hear him?
Dad. What the hell is wrong with you? I said no. Get in the car. I did. He took me back to the house. Oh my God. You made me do it. Father,
It touches you.
What that young man had to endure and us carrying. No kid should ever be in that environment.
And there's just, a bunch of grown men and women in there, and tears just streaming down faces because we all know it's true, but none of us wanted it to be true.
It became very obvious to me that Joe is not a willing participant.
His father essentially marched him up to that residence at gunpoint, and Joe simply did not have a choice.
Joe was not charged with any crime. In another interview, a month later, he provides more horrifying details.
They flips on the light, and this woman says, "Who are you?" And then he yells, "Who are you?" And then shoots her. I just hear shots.
Okay.
Joe says his father then goes into Lauren's bedroom.
And then I hear Lauren scream, a very short, surprise, fearful scream. Mm-hmm. And then I hear 3 shots, and it's like 1, 2, 3, and then the last shot.
Okay.
Once they were back in Bozeman, they went to the town pump and got the beer and then started disposing of evidence.
We searched trash cans, we searched ditches, we tried to retrace whatever possible routes we thought that Paul might have gone.
The amount of man hours that went into searching.
Just when they're ready to give up hope, they catch a break. The one that didn't get away. A Montana outdoorswoman is out here fishing on this frozen pond, and you'd never guess what crucial clue she reels in. A lake in Montana, great spot for skating and ice fishing.
Okay, all right, there we go.
Right down in.
From recreation to a murder investigation, Cattail Lake is about to become a critical location in the crime that shook Bozeman, the shooting of Lauren DeWise and Ashley Van Hamert.
But we still didn't have a murder weapon.
Our one person that was telling us anything, Joe, he didn't know where Paul got rid of the pistol.
We involved search and rescue, we searched trash cans, we searched ditches.
We were throwing everything we could. The amount of man hours that went into searching, trying to find the murder weapon.
Well, I mean, the state has to prove every element of the allegation beyond a reasonable doubt. Missing evidence is doubt. Not having a murder weapon is a significant piece of missing evidence.
It's important. I mean, it's not impossible to prosecute a case without a weapon. But if you can get the murder weapon and you can add that piece to the puzzle and trace that weapon back, now you're pulling the case together the way it's supposed to go.
Police are looking for a Ruger 22 caliber pistol. They believe Paul DeWise owns one, but when they search his home, they don't find it.
So when we executed the search warrant on his house, we found an owner's manual for a 22 caliber Mark II pistol, but we could not find the pistol anywhere in his collection of guns.
And then a gun turns up in the most Montana way you can imagine. Get yourself a bucket, some bait, drill a hole in the ice, and you can catch a mess of fish here in Montana. You might also reel in a clue, like that missing murder weapon. It was found right here on this lake.
Hi.
How you doing?
Doing good. It's a beautiful day to fish.
I love it out here. Look at this. Paradise.
Absolutely.
The day the shootings are discovered in Belgrade, Andrea Larson is ice fishing about 6 miles away on Cattail Lake with her husband and their dog, Aldo. So take me back to that day, January 7th, 2018. You're out here fishing.
Yep.
Had you heard about the shooting?
No, I mean, my husband and I were just having a lazy Sunday morning. We got up and made a little bit of breakfast and then decided to come out here.
So where exactly did you find the gun?
So it was kind of in this general vicinity here, in the middle of the skating track that they plow every year.
Kind of sitting in the snow.
Yeah, just upside down, mostly buried in the snow. When it immediately became apparent that it was the butt of a pistol that I was looking at.
The gun found within hours of the crime. If Andrea turns it in right away, this case gets solved in 24 hours. But that's not how murder mysteries work.
This couple found the gun, did not think too much of it.
They ended up picking it up and they brought it back to their house and forgot about it.
You know, people watching might ask, why did you take so long to turn it in?
Well, at the time, I was in the process of enlisting in the National Guard, so I had quite a bit on my plate and quite a bit on my mind, and at the time it wasn't any kind of a pressing issue, it was just a lost and found.
We decided that we should probably put a press release out to the public to remind them that we're still working this case and we still have evidence we need to find and we can't find it.
I was actually reading an article on my phone about the murder, and there was a note in the article that mentioned that they hadn't found the boots or the murder weapon, and the murder weapon was a Ruger Mark II 22 long rifle pistol. And in an instant, my world shrank, and I knew that was the exact model of pistol that I had found.
Andrea calls the police, and as quick as you can say Exhibit A, an officer is at her front door to collect it.
Oh boy. This big deal.
I can still remember when I got the phone call from Detective Kopp indicating that they had found that. It was a big day.
We didn't recover any prints, but what we did do is run an ATF trace on the serial number.
We ultimately found through that trace of the firearm that it was in fact Mr. DeWise who had purchased that firearm.
A firearms expert test fires the pistol and determines it's the gun that killed Lauren and wounded Ashley.
So that was certainly a big piece of evidence that further linked Mr. DeWise not only to the gun, but that it also linked the gun to the crime scene.
It was kind of icing on that cake that is the murder weapon.
How does it feel to be a part of such a terrible crime?
I'm glad I was able to add to the evidence, but it's not something I would have asked to happen.
You didn't want to be involved in this?
No. I mean, it was a terrible tragedy. It's violence against women isn't something that we want to see happening anywhere, but least of all in a town that I consider to be very safe.
And what if Andrea hadn't gone ice fishing that day?
It was very warm that day, and the slush was very thick, so it wouldn't have taken very much snow to cover it back up again, and it would have froze into the ice and then melted off in spring, and no one would have ever seen it.
When we come back, a friend of Lauren's recalls an online encounter with Paul DeWise just weeks before the killing.
The hair on the back of my neck stood up.
Nearly 2 years after the shooting, Paul DeWise goes on trial right here in this courtroom, 301 in Bozeman, Montana. He's charged with the deliberate homicide of his wife, Lauren, and the attempted deliberate homicide of a woman he didn't even know, Ashley Van Hamert.
I don't think anyone had laid eyes on Ashley since since she had been injured. So her walking into that courtroom that first time was like, all right, we're here.
It was a higher profile case, I think primarily because there were so many people in the community that liked Lauren. They're concerned about domestic violence, and they want to see people held accountable.
And after being in that courtroom, I can tell you some of the things that were said in there were quite chilling.
On her work computer, we even found photographs of some bruises that she had sustained during this whole situation.
Paul admits he once punched Lauren 10 times in the arm, but he denies repeatedly abusing her, and he denies killing her.
He threatened her constantly. He has held a gun to her. He has threatened to kill her. He has said, I know why men kill their wives.
Her coworkers saw bruises, and one of her supervisors actually saw a handprint on her, and at that point she denied that it was from Paul.
She said, I can't believe I've never told anybody this, but I think I need to leave Paul. He beats me all of the time.
Other than Paul, can you think of anyone else that would have any reason to do anyone in your house harm?
Not a soul.
Prosecutors play evidence of Paul's behavior for the jury, recordings preserved by Paul himself on his phone.
And I'm angry. And my children are angry. And my baby's angry. And it's hard for me to live with.
I would say the most difficult piece of evidence and the strongest pieces of evidence came from Paul's cell phone.
You threw glasses at me. You choked me with that tub. You beat the out of me when I was pregnant with baby. I was 4 months, 5 months pregnant.
His phone had so much information, and it had audio recordings, all kind of painted the broad picture of how violent the relationship between Paul and Lauren really were.
Hours-long audio clips of him just harassing Lauren night and day.
I'm trying to express myself now.
There were some pretty horrific recordings that he had made with Lauren.
To kill her. He says very specifically, at least 5 times I'm going to kill you. Around me, just because you're around.
It was very, very dark.
All of this evidence was really sort of piling up with regards to who it was that had a motive and desire to cause harm to Lauren.
Paul's attorneys argue there's no evidence of repeated physical abuse. He cooperated with police, and no experts or physical evidence, neither DNA, fingerprints, nor cell phone data, that tie him to the crime.
The bubbly, happy personality was hiding a lot of pain, a lot of fear.
Lauren's friend Jessica Johns says she saw Paul's dark side when he posted on Facebook about his breakup with Lauren.
Along with the post was some very strong language about how horrible Lauren was and that she was a cheater and a liar and many things that were very shocking.
She says she tried to convince Paul to take down that post.
No matter what I would say about, hey, I understand your feelings, he would just spew more and more hate.
Jessica says she reached out to Lauren on Facebook.
She's like, I'm okay, I'm at a friend's house. I've been in a very bad marriage for a long time.
Less than 2 months later, Lauren was dead.
The biggest freight train that you could see coming, I saw it coming and I couldn't stop it. It was heartbreaking.
Next, a courtroom surprise. A witness who claims the wrong man is on trial. One witness who knows for certain whether Paul DeWise shot Lauren and Ashley. And Paul DeWise caught on tape. The phone call prosecutors say exposed a secret plan to beat the rap.
He needs to just step up and do what's right so that we can be reunited and take care of AV.
Call from and paid for by an inmate at Gallatin County Detention Center.
About a month after his arrest, Paul DeWise calls his daughter Natalie from jail.
He made a phone call to Natalie, trying to convince her to tell Joe to take the fall for the whole thing.
Joe said that I took him with me and I'm responsible for what happened. So that means to me that Joe must have done it. And it's really important that he admit it, because if he admits it, then I get the out of here. Understand?
Yeah.
Tells his 17-year-old daughter to convince her 15-year-old brother to confess to the homicide of his stepmother. And it's all on the jail call.
He's scared. I understand. But he needs to understand the jails here, they're safe, they're nice, the food's good, and they don't have the rape problem, so he doesn't have to worry about that.
Okay, good.
Now, DeWise's 19-year-old daughter also took the stand.
At the trial, Natalie tells the jury about that phone call.
That was a damaging piece of evidence. It painted Paul in an unlikable light, I think. It did hurt our case.
I didn't even know if we were going to call Natalie at trial. We had her subpoenaed, but we didn't know if we were actually going to call her because it was kind of a loose cannon in terms of what she was going to say.
For almost 2 years after the murder, Natalie had backed her dad's alibi that he was home with her and Joe when Lauren and Ashley were shot.
But that all changed about a month before trial.
Natalie, will you give me your full name, please?
Natalie DeWise.
She ended up confessing to knowing that her dad had killed Lauren, that she had stayed at home with Jennifer, and that when he came home, he told her everything that he had done.
He says he's done something bad. Just stay calm. You don't have anything to worry about. I need your cooperation with this. I took Joe to go kill Lauren.
Paul's defense attorneys remind the jury that Natalie had changed her story, but she's not the only one of Paul's children to testify against him.
Our theory at the trial was that Joe gave two very inconsistent statements and tried to attack his credibility.
If Joe was at the house and admitted to being at the house, and there was some suspicion that he pulled the trigger, he has a motive there, doesn't he? To change or modify a story. And that's certainly something I think that we seized upon.
It just further showed the degree of control and manipulation that Mr. DeWise had over those two children, Natalie and Joe.
It was very clear that he used the kids as pawns.
The most important witness to me was Ashley Van Hemert. She is a miracle.
I think we should do it again. Let's stand up.
She had done, at that point, years of physical therapy.
I'm standing well. Thank you, Jesus.
And was able to walk up to the stand by herself. And that was incredible.
I was shot in the back of the head. I was shot in the right carotid artery.
What was it like to testify?
Wasn't really anything at all. They just wanted to know what my life was like before I got hurt and what I was able to do and clearly what I was not able to do now. Yeah.
Ashley has no memory of it, but she now knows what police say Paul DeWise did that night.
That's when he started to shoot me.
Horrific.
Yes.
How do you make sense of that?
Satan. Yeah. He got evil. Pure evil, yes.
And
he didn't want somebody moving on with her life without him.
And sadly, Lauren died.
She did, yes. Very sadly, yes. She left behind a 3-year-old daughter.
It still stays with you.
He'll never leave.
The final witness to be sworn in and sit in this chair is the one witness who knows for certain whether Paul DeWise shot Lauren and Ashley. He's the one witness who knows for certain whether Paul DeWise is guilty or not. That final witness? Paul DeWise.
And I have been in jail for 22 months waiting for an opportunity to explain to a jury that I'm innocent.
You got the idea that he thought he was the smartest person in the room. All the time.
Paul decided to waive his Fifth Amendment right, and he testified.
I have been falsely accused here. I didn't do it, and I don't deserve to go to prison. And what you've done is wrong.
I think it worked out poorly.
On the 7th day, the defense rested. The jury did not.
After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Joseph Paul DeWise guilty.
Paul was found guilty of count 1, deliberate homicide, count 2, attempted deliberate homicide.
2 months later, at his sentencing hearing, Paul gets another chance to talk.
I could go on for hours about the injustices, but I won't. I'm not guilty of what I've been convicted of.
Paul DeWise had his say, but he didn't get the last word. And you get a chance to speak to him directly.
Ashley, what are the things that you would like to say to the court and the defendant?
When she said it, she was looking right at him, and he was looking right at her.
Ashley Van Hamert confronting the man who left her for dead. This you have to see.
To the charge of deliberate homicide of Lauren DeWise, guilty.
Paul DeWise has been found guilty of murdering his wife, Lauren, and for the attempted murder of her roommate, Ashley Van Hamert. Now, at his sentencing, the courtroom falls silent as Ashley takes the stand.
Ashley wanted to testify at sentencing, which is her right as a victim, and she got up on the stand and talked about how her life had been changed due to being shot.
I've had to learn to live with only the use of my right hand and arm. So I've had to learn to dress all over again. I had to learn how to eat all over again and swallow. I can't do any of the stuff that I enjoyed doing before.
She is a miracle. Degree of courage and compassion that she displayed in getting up to confront Mr. DeWise about what he did is remarkable.
What was it like looking at him in the eye?
They just walked in, and I saw the back of them, and I just thought, well, that's the man that shot me. And I don't know why God fully chose to save my life yet, Paul. I don't. But one thing I do know that I've gained from this is I understand people's hurt on a whole new level. You may have tried to have killed me, but you don't have the final say on when somebody's life is over.
Despite all the harm she suffered, Ashley's message to Paul is one of forgiveness and redemption.
If God can forgive me an unlimited amount of times, then how can I withhold forgiveness from you, Paul? This doesn't have to be the end of your story. You can still do good while you're in prison. You can still be kind to people.
She even brings with her a gift.
I brought a Bible, Paul, that I want to give to you.
Holy smokes. You get someone that can not once but twice go to a witness stand, let alone enter the same room as someone who did this to you, and say right to their face, I forgive you. It changed everybody in that room.
While Ashley may be forgiving, Judge Holly Brown has other ideas when it comes to Paul's sentence.
For count 1, deliberate homicide, will be committed to the Montana State Prison for the period of 100 years.
He got 220 years, no parole. So 100 years for the count for Lauren, 100 years for Ashley, and then 10 years per count for the weapons enhancements.
It doesn't bring Lauren back, and it can't heal his children in the way that they deserve. You know, in such a short span of time, he ruined so many lives.
Both Natalie and Joe DeWise returned to Florida to live with their mother. Little Jennifer DeWise now lives with her maternal grandmother.
I kept thinking about her daughter. She never got the chance to really know how wonderful her mom was, and that was heartbreaking.
Silence is the worst thing that you can have with regards to domestic violence. Not talking about it, not bringing it out into the open, not pursuing it with law enforcement or your family members.
A victim is most in danger, especially when they leave the relationship. That's the most dangerous time.
How often do you think of her?
I think of her quite often, most often on the anniversary.
On the anniversary of the shooting, Ashley posted a heartfelt letter addressed to Lauren. She shared it with me when I sat down with her.
I'm sorry, Lauren. I'm sorry you're not here anymore, and I can't tell you why God didn't stop him. Believe me when I say I would trade places with you in a heartbeat. Please know you will never be forgotten.
Do you think she can hear you?
Yeah, I do. Good boy.
Today, Ashley is back to the thing she loves, like being outdoors with her dog Bronson and spending time with her family. How did it feel to be out there on the mountain?
It's awesome. I'm learning to snowboard again. I mean, it's learning all over again, a whole new way. Awesome. So much fun. I mean, I look pretty orthodox going down the hill now, but, I can still do it.
Are you amazed, Caleb?
Amazed, yes, but not surprised. Just with her grit, her tenacity, her unwillingness to give up.
And Linda, you wear a bracelet that says what?
I do, and it says you are stronger than you think you are. And she is definitely one of the strongest people that I know.
I'm more vibrant today than I've ever been in my whole life.
Thanks to this horrible tragedy.
You know what? Yeah. I love you. Yes.
What amazing resilience. Ashley tells us that she hopes to raise awareness of domestic violence in honor of her roommate Lauren.
Paul DeWise appealed his murder conviction, but it was denied. That's our program for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night.